Yo, what's up guys? Hope you guys are doing good. So today we are gonna see, what if Naruto became the legendary treasure hunter of the Gold Digger universe, Naruto x Harem, part 1. So before we start, go check out the author of this fanfic, Jathal, link is in the description, and also subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's get into the video. Brianna's desperate gasps echoed in her ears. The darkness that she was trapped in seemed to be closing in around her, as she desperately thought of a way to survive this latest encounter with the unknown. A rhythmic pounding on the solid ground caused the half-wore cheetah to grip her plasma rifle tightly, as the sound drew closer to the stalagmite that she was hiding behind. The hut built into her helmet hinged the 4 targets, as they slowly converged on her hiding spot, as if they had some way of tracking her, despite the fact that all they appeared to be made of was solid granite. Well, guess I can rule out technology. After all, I did see them form out of a pile of rocks, as I was exploring. And the plasma rifle does jack against them. I think all it did was make him even angrier. Taking a moment, Brianna tried her comm device again, but the burst of static had the young woman swearing softly, as she shut down the system once more. Damn it, I must be in too deep, that or there's enough iron in these walls to block the signal. Either way, it looks like I'm on my own for now. I hope Gina and Britt are okay. Just as Brianna closed her eyes, hoping that all of this was some kind of crazy nightmare caused by a late-night tuna run, her proximity alarm blared at her, just as the stalagmite she was hiding behind exploded into rubble. The craggy hand reached for her armored shoulder with surprising speed, and threw Brianna across the cavern, the young woman's armor sparking, as she skipped and rolled along the floor. The out-of-control ride that Brianna had been sent on ended just as abruptly as it had begun. Her armored back slammed into the cavern wall with bone-jarring force. The impact forced the air from Brianna's lungs, causing the young woman to gasp loudly, as she tried to regain her breath and face her attackers. Once Brianna was able to breathe properly again, she struggled to stand, as the 4 golems converged on her once more, their slow measured treads almost sounding, as if they were countdown to the end of the young woman's life, as they drew nearer. Looking at her hut once more, Brianna saw that she had dropped her plasma rifle when she had been thrown, and was now weaponless, for all the good it had done in the end. Closing her eyes for a moment, Brianna felt tears sliding down her cheeks, as the 4 golems drew closer, 3 of the silent constructs penning her in place, while the 4th continued towards her. And just when the young woman had accepted that it was her fate to die today, a single word caused the woman to feel a rush of hope. Duck. Reacting on instinct, Brianna dove towards the floor, covered her head, and clenched her eyes shut, as a powerful blast of wind nearly lifted the woman off of the ground. As the violent windstorm died down, Brianna slowly raised her head, and gasped in awe. A 2-foot hole had been blasted through the lead golem, the creature's massive hand reaching towards a young man that was standing in front of Brianna, as if protecting her. Brianna took a moment to look at her savior, and couldn't help but grin at what she saw. Sun-kissed blonde hair, a tall powerful-looking body dress and a long black cloak with orange flames trimming it. The young man turned around, and Brianna's eyes widened, as she took in his sky-blue eyes, and 3 whisker marks on each of his cheeks. A metal plate attached to a headband caught Brianna's eye, a strange spiral design adorned the protective headgear that was niggling at the young woman's memories. Or are they Gina's memories? Before Brianna could contemplate the situation any further, the young man grinned at her, and gestured with his thumb at the remaining 3 golems. So, give him a minute to take care of these guys, and then we'll talk, okay? As Brianna nodded slowly in shock. She watched a glowing sphere of blue energy form in the mystery man's hand, the sensors on Brianna's suit going insane from the readings they were picking up. What in the that's not magic? Could it be life energy manipulation? Just who the hell is this guy? Brianna watched in awe, as the man pivoted quickly, slamming the ball of compressed energy into the nearest golem, the attack picking the construct up off of his feet, and sending it spinning into the far wall, creating a small crater that soon buried another of Brianna's deadly attackers, under hundreds of pounds of rock. Brianna watched, as the young man ran towards the 2 remaining constructs, fear once more gripping her, as she saw the pair of golems turn towards him, and begin swinging their oversized fists at him, moving much faster than something that large and heavy had any right to. But the blonde-haired man began bouncing around each strike, appearing almost as if he were a leaf blowing in the wind, his movements almost appearing as if he were playing with the golems, and not actually fighting them. The blonde thrust his hand out, the hit sending one of the golems skidding back, as he flipped over the other one, landing on its back. Brianna watched, as he raised his arm, and a cyclone of energy appeared, this time appearing like a funnel. Once the ability was stabilized, the blonde thrust his hand downwards, the attack ripping through the golem's head, the stone that made up the head and chest of the construct's body literally exploding into fragments, while the remainder of the construct sagged and began to slowly fall apart, the man riding the disintegrating pile to the ground. Standing swiftly, the blonde ran towards the construct that he had knocked back, and slashed his hand in an arc before him, another blaze of energy leaping from his arm towards the oncoming attacker. But before it could take a half-dozen steps closer, it just went to pieces, a small silvery stone rolling away from the pile, and hitting the blonde-haired man's boot. Leaning down, the mysterious stranger picked up the orb, and eyed it critically for a moment. Okay, let's see what we have here. Brianna watched the young man inspect the item in his hand, a thoughtful expression on his face, as he rubbed his chin slowly. After several moments he nodded, pocketed the silver orb, and walked back towards Brianna. Once he was facing the girl he had saved, he crouched down, and held out a hand for the young woman before him. The name's Naruto. I'm going to get you and your sisters out of here. Come with me if you want to live. Brianna couldn't help it. The line was just so cheesy that she had to burst out in a fit of giggles, causing Naruto to pout and rest his hand on his knees. Hey, I thought that sounded cool. Fine, fine, laugh at the guy that just rescued you, I know how it is. No respect I tell ya, no respect these days. Brianna shook her head, as she tried to gain control of her giggling, an attempt that caused Naruto to waggle his eyebrows at the girl, sending her off into another fit of laughter. After several moments Brianna finally calmed down, and Naruto smiled at her warmly. Feeling better now? Nothing like a good laugh to get over a scary or dangerous situation. Naruto stood up, and held his hand out once more. This time Brianna took his hand, and was effortlessly pulled to her feet. Walking towards her rifle, the young woman picked it up, and magnetically attached it to the back plate of her armor, finally turning back towards Naruto, and putting her hands on her hips. So, what's a guy like you doing in a place like this? Naruto grinned, as he folded his arms over his chest, and shrugged his shoulders. Oh, nothing really, I just felt like seeing the sights, getting in a show, maybe doing some shopping in the area. Brianna cocked her eyebrow at Naruto's answer, as she looked at their surroundings. In a 15,000-year-old temple that's built into the side of a mountain that just happens to be in the middle of a nature reserve in China. Naruto laughed nervously, and rubbed the back of his head before gesturing towards a tunnel behind the pair. Well, I think we better get going. After all, those weren't the only defenders here. We better go, and find your sisters. Brianna's eyes widened, as she realized that her sisters were still in trouble, the woman running towards one of the corridors in a blind panic. But after a few steps she squawked indignantly, as she felt a pair of arms picking her bridal style, her blushing face looking into the mirthful eyes of Naruto. I think you should let me do the running, we'll get there faster. Plus, I know where they are, you were about to head in the wrong direction. Brianna blushed, as she was about to bring up the fact that her armor easily weighed a couple hundred pounds, and would most likely slow the man down. That was until he took off in an insane burst of speed, the cavern wall zipping by the pair, as the man deftly dodged any obstruction in the way, as he held her securely. Brianna looked up at the grinning man that was holding her, a warm feeling growing in her chest, as she continued to stare at his handsome face, as the pair raced towards her sisters. Tall, handsome, very well built, insanely powerful, and funny too. I think I'm in love. Several hours earlier, Zhejiang, China. So this ancient temple of what was it called again, Gina? Gina sighed softly, getting ready to repeat the information again to her younger sister, a sister that was apparently only paying partial attention to what Gina was saying, as she looked at a fashion magazine. Like I said the last 3 times in Brittany, it's called the Temple of Mu. Apparently it was some kind of outpost for a continent that sank over 15,000 years ago. I still don't know what kind of disaster could have caused an entire continent to disappear, but there's way too much evidence to not believe that it existed at one point. I'm hoping that we can find some sort of clue where it was located, maybe some kind of artifact that would prove that Mu really existed. Gina glanced back at her other passenger, and sighed at the nervous energy that was almost literally flowing around her. Brianna was looking over her small arms collection that she had brought on this mission. Each piece was being expertly disassembled, then reassembled at extremely high speeds, as she tried to get rid of the feeling that was bothering her. Everything okay back there, Brianna? You seem a little nervous. Gina watched her sister's hands slowly pause in their task, the question causing the young half-human war cheetah to look up at her sister, an almost embarrassed look on her face. Is it just me, or have you two noticed any kind of weird stuff that's been happening since Mom came back to Earth? Gina started to laugh, as she shook her head. That was before she started to think about several instances that had been occurring over the last few weeks. You know, now that you mention it, there have been some weird things happening. Like pieces of equipment that I put down the day before, and when I come back it's not exactly in the same place, but no one else has entered the labs. And some of the computers have been left on, even when I know for a fact I've turned them off. I didn't pay any attention to the incidents, I just thought I was being absent-minded again, that is until you mentioned it. How about you, Brit? Have you seen or heard anything weird in the house lately? Brit. Gina looked over at her sister, the war cheetah growling slowly, as she lowered her magazine. Raymond. Gina's brow furrowed, as she looked at Brianna then back at Brittany. Raymond. What does Raymond have to do with anything? Brittany threw her magazine in the back seat, and raised her half-clenched hands towards her sisters, an almost manic look gleaming in her eyes. Everything. The smell of it is everywhere in the house, day and night. So many different flavors, and it never goes away. And now that I'm smelling it all the time, I freaking want to eat some, but I can't find it anywhere in the house. It's driving me insane. Heck, I even smell it here, in the car. Did you build some kind of invisible Raymond storage unit or something that makes the same scent as that stuff, when I wasn't looking, sis? Gina looked at Brittany in concern, patting the growling girl on her shoulder. Okay, relax Cheetah, we'll find out what's happening when we get home, okay? And no, I didn't make anything like that, that would just be silly. For now, I need you ready to tackle this site. It's going to be the biggest one yet, and possibly the most dangerous. Gina looked out the windows, and grinned at the sight before her. Her honed archaeological instincts were telling her that a major discovery was going to take place at this location. The mountainous region that they had traveled to had been searched high and low for generations, as if the local populace knew that there was something of value or importance hidden away, but no one had found anything, that is until today. A large platform had been carved into the side of the mountain, almost as if it were a landing zone for an impressive-looking temple that occupied the same area of the large mountain. Gina's well-trained eye was already cataloging the features of the structure that despite its age and battered appearance, the temple still stood strong and made for an imposing sight. As the Gina-mobile finished its landing cycle, Gina excitedly popped the hatch and jumped out, nearly sprinting towards the temple, before a strong grip on her forearm reigned in her enthusiasm. Looking back at Brittany with a sheepish expression, Gina laughed nervously as she twiddled her thumbs in embarrassment. Sorry Cheetah, I just got a little excited. No one has ever been in a structure like this before. We're breaking new ground here, we'll be famous. Brittany sighed and shook her head in exasperation, while a giggling Brianna used their light gate to bring over the material they would need for the dig. Several minutes later, the diggers team was ready to tackle the new mystery before them, not one of them knowing what awaited them inside. This place is a dump. Gina glared at Brittany at her outburst, even though she was having similar thoughts about the condition of the structure. The trio had cautiously picked their way through the antechamber at the front of the temple proper, but when they had entered the main hall, the level of destruction inside the structure was mind-blowing. Multiple interior walls were sporting massive holes, that is if they were still standing, which many of them were not. As Gina and her sisters traveled deeper into the ruined temple, Gina began to feel a trickle of fear in her stomach. It looks like there was some kind of battle that took place here. There's evidence of an explosion here as well, just look at those blast marks. And you see those areas where it looks like the stone melted. That almost looks like it was caused by a fireball spell. But none of the evidence I have found points to the Murians using magic, so the question is what the heck happened here? As the trio steadily made their way further into the interior of the building, none of them noticed a small, completely normal-looking snake that slithered behind them, its forked tongue lazily flicking out, as it studied the trio that had entered the once-abandoned temple. Had the girls taken notice of the beast, they would have been confused by the fact that it had a band of fabric tied around its body, as well as a small metal plate affixed to said fabric with a symbol of a musical note etched into it. Hissing softly, the snake slithered away, deeper into the complex, and towards its brethren, knowing that they would want to hear of the first fresh meat that was blindly walking right into their den after many years of patiently waiting in the shadows. Gina rubbed her chin as she looked at the large door in her way. The characters surrounding it were surprisingly familiar to her. Brittany crossed her arms under her and sighed as she waited impatiently. So, what does it say? Can we crack this thing open yet? Gina stepped back and stared at the door for several moments before rubbing her chin in thought. Yeah, we can, but that's not the problem. These characters on this door are. They're not Chinese, ancient or otherwise. They're also not any of the dead languages from past empires that I'm familiar with. Brittany shrugged as she gestured at the sealed door impatiently. So it's a new one for you to learn now, just open the door. Gina shook her head and pointed again at the characters as she held Brittany back once more. No, I do recognize them, but that's the problem, it's Japanese. Japanese in a 15,000-year-old temple on mainland China. As Brittany continued to look at Gina in confusion, Gina sighed as she shook her head. The Japanese used here is written in kana, that was created around 800 AD, and there's no evidence of anyone having been here for thousands of years. So how did a modern writing style get carved into a 15,000-year-old door? Both girls froze, as the sound of stone rubbing against stone, the grating sound echoing throughout the room, as a grunting Brianna pushed open the door and entered the ancient structure. The half-cheetah froze as she took in the sights before her, as Gina walked forward, poking the immobile girl in the arm as she ran at her. Brianna, the message said not to open the door. Some kind of evil entity guards this place, and Gina trailed off as she looked at the odd gaze of Brianna, the young genius turning to the side to see what had captured her sister's attention. An elaborate city was stretched out before them, the very buildings appearing as if they had been literally carved from the stone around them, while multiple soft glowing lights illuminated the complex. The sight stretched on for hundreds of meters, and each of the girls gasped in awe. Brittany whistled appreciatively and placed her hands on her hips, her next comment causing both Gina and Brianna to nod in agreement. Walking forward, Gina spotted a staircase next to the ledge the trio were on, and the excited archaeologist happily made her way into the silent city before her. Brianna and Brittany quickly followed their sister, watching as the eldest digger's sister was working on her wrist comp while she grinned like a little kid in a candy shop. Amazing. This place has to be at least a mile across, and look at the buildings, they look like they've grown right out of the ground rather than being built here. Look, bioluminescent crystals to get past the lack of sunlight. Ooh, look at that over there. Gina rushed forward, looking at an ornate fountain that still had water running through whatever system kept it operational, and bouncing around like a giddy schoolgirl. Brianna rested her rifle on her shoulder, looked at Brittany, and the pair grinned at the overly enthusiastic sister, as she gushed about the greatest find of the century. Just as Gina was about to pass the pair once more, having her eye caught by another wonder in this rediscovered city, Brittany reached out and grabbed her sister by the back of her leather jacket, stopping the excited archaeologist in her tracks, and causing her to glare at Brittany and Brianna. "Hey, what's the big idea?" "I was out." Brittany bopped her sister on her head, causing Gina to rub the spot and glare at Brittany. "Calm down, sis, we don't know if this place is dangerous or not. So, how are we going to do this? Do we stay together or do we split up and search on our own?" Then flashback. And that was when we decided to split up. Gina and Brittany went together since, well, Gina wouldn't be able to do anything on her own. She's way too excited about this place. I, on the other hand, am carrying enough firepower that normally I'd be a match for anything we could come up against, so I decided to wander off on my own. Brianna watched as Naruto nodded absently, still dodging the occasional boulder or stalagmite in their way as they traveled deeper into the ancient city. Brianna looked at the man that was holding her, and finally asked a question that she had been dying to get an answer to. "So, how did you end up here in the nick of time to save little Olm?" Gina said the only reason she found this place was because of some old dusty tablet that she unearthed in a previous dig. "What's your reason for being here? Are you some kind of archaeologist like Gina, or maybe an adventurer?" Brianna giggled at the expression that appeared on Nerida's face, almost looking like panic mixed with a little bit of hesitation mixed in for good measure. Flashback platform outside of the temple. But the nearest settlement in the area over 100 miles away, and being halfway up the mountain in the first place, Gina didn't think it was important to activate the alarms on her car. She didn't even bother to lock it, trusting in the fact that the location was so remote that no one would be around to try and get into her stuff. But, about an hour after the girls had entered the temple, white smoke began to leak out of the trunk before it popped open, the coughing figure pulling himself free, and waving his hands to clear the air before him. "I've never gotten the hang of dispelling in an enclosed environment. Every single time the same thing happens. Well, guess that's why I'm a combat shinobi, and not an infiltrator." Uzumaki Naruto yawned, as he stretched out his cramped muscles, scratching the back of his head, as he looked at the structure before him. "Man, I must have fallen asleep, that nap sure did hit the spot. I'm guessing the girls went into that seems kinda familiar, almost like I've been somewhere like this before. Crapuscus." Naruto quickly closed his eyes, stretching out with his senses, until he felt the familiar warmth of nature chakra surrounding him. Opening his eyes, Naruto could feel the 3 chakra signatures of the girls in the temple, and also further inside. "Aw shit, you have got to be kidding me. The first protection detail I get after 15,000 years, and I let them walk into a freaking sound research outpost." Slamming the trunk shut, Naruto spun around and ran into the building, hoping that he reached the girls in time. Then flashback. "I'm actually on a holiday, yeah, a mountain climbing holiday. It just so happens that today I decided to climb this mountain, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time." Brianna narrowed her gaze, and gave Naruto a deadpan stare, the young man doing his best to ignore the disbelieving look. "So you decided to climb 5,000 feet up a mountain in the Zhejiang province of China on the same day that me and my sisters decided to show up on the same mountain that we arrived at, when no one knew that we would be here without any obvious climbing gear, not even a rope, right? Wanna try again?" Naruto started to sweat a little, as he felt the young woman's intense gaze, as she waited for his newest excuse. A moment later Naruto skidded to a halt, as the path ahead of them branched off, both tunnels appearing to lead the same way. Naruto's gaze narrowed for a moment, as he put Brianna on the ground, the young woman watching in surprise, as Naruto sat on the ground, crossed his legs, and closed his eyes. What are you doing?" Naruto grinned, as he pointed towards the tunnels, his eyes still closed, as he responded. "I'm mapping out the tunnels ahead of us. I'm pretty sure only one leads towards your sisters, while the other would be an unpleasant side trip." Brianna nodded slowly, as she looked down each of the available tunnels, then back at Naruto. "So how exactly are you mapping out the tunnels in front of us if you're sitting there with your eyes closed?" Naruto's loud laugh caused Brianna to grin, as he opened his eyes, and looked at his current companion. "So many questions. Well then, I guess I can tell you. This entire mountain is laced with chakra-conducting metal, which would allow anyone with even the slightest skills, as a chakra sensor, to use that mineral to see the entire interior of this complex. It's the same material used to create that orb I picked up from those golems I trashed earlier." Brianna's brow furrowed, as she frowned cutely, causing Naruto to chuckle. "Oh yeah, that thing you picked up after the fight, what was that? And what the heck is chakra?" Naruto grinned once more, holding his hand up, and Brianna saw the silvery orb from before, but, as she leaned closer, her armor sensors were picking up minute energy readings from the material, as it rested in Naruto's palm. "This is a seal sphere, a highly advanced method of creating artificial life, more or less. It basically acts as a focal point for a specific type of material, in this case granite, and allows said material to form a crude body to perform a function. This one's function was to stop all unauthorized entries into this facility. I'm guessing anyone that lived here had a mark somewhere on their body that would ID them, so they could pass these guys freely. Usually these kinds of constructs have some form of override. I have a bad feeling that someone used it to kill everyone in the complex many years ago. Pocketing the silver orb, Naruto held out his empty hand once more, narrowed his eyes for a moment, and the sphere of energy that he had used earlier slowly appeared. Brianna leaned in close, mesmerized, as she watched the whorls of energy spinning around in multiple directions inside of the tightly contained sphere. And this is chakra. The best way to describe it. Well, life creates it, and makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us, and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. Naruto trailed off, as Brianna glared at him hotly, her finger thrust into the blonde-haired man's face, as he started to crack up. You bastard, that's from Star Wars. What the hell kind of explanation is that? Naruto laughed, as the sphere he held in his hand slowly dissipated, the young man rising to his feet, and wiping the dust from his legs. It's true I ripped that off from a movie, but it's honestly one of the best descriptions I could think of for chakra. It's almost like the Force, but with some distinct differences, mostly that it's a lot more versatile, and there's no good or bad side, just good and bad people that use it. In any case, we're going down the right path. Your sisters are still alive, and we should find them fairly soon if we follow that route. How about you tell me a bit more about yourself on the way there? Brianna turned away in a huff, causing Naruto to grin, as he scooped the woman up in his arms once more, a squeal escaping from his passenger's lips, as she found herself staring into his blue eyes. Brianna growled softly, as Naruto smiled at her, an expression that caused Brianna's anger to slowly fade away. Fine, let's go get my sisters back, and then we'll talk. After all, I still need to learn a lot about you too, Mr. Uzumaki. And no more ripping off quotes from movies. Naruto laughed, as he raced down the correct corridor, the smile on his lips never faltering, as the pair quickly sped along towards their destination. Sorry, I can't promise that. I can promise, however, that I'll get you and your sisters out of here in one piece. Brianna shook her head in exasperation, but the young woman couldn't help but feel a rush of warmth when she heard Naruto promise that they would all get out of this. The pair continued down the tunnel, Naruto focusing on the obstacles before him, while Brianna was mentally squealing, as she was held in the young man's arms once more, his solid chest providing the perfect place to rest her head. Though, I am laying claim to this guy before Gina tries to get her claws into him. He's a bit of a geek, but hey, so is the part of me that was copied from Gina, but the rest of him, just the thought of what he can do is mind-blowing. Oh crap, how's he going to react when he hears I'm the clone of Gina? Will he think I'm some kind of sick, twisted experiment? Some kind of freak of nature? As Brianna continued to obsess and worry over how Naruto would react to her questionable origins, the young woman missed spotting the end of the tunnel where a bright light had appeared, as if welcoming the pair to their final destination. Well, look at that, it's the end of the corridor. Your sisters should be on the other side. Naruto trailed off, as he dug his feet into the ground, both him and Brianna sliding to a halt on a narrow ledge that dropped off into a black chasm. Both Brianna and Naruto let out deep breaths at the close call. A sudden scream had the pair looking up. Brianna immediately began to try and squirm out of Naruto's arms, as she saw Gina pass right before their eyes, her older sister's terrified screams continuing, as she fell into the dark chasm before them. Oh shit, stay here. Naruto quickly put Brianna down, and leaped from the ledge, diving towards the falling girl, while Brianna watched helplessly from above. Gina. Naruto. No. 5 minutes before Gina fell, Brittany sighed, as she followed her ecstatic older sister, Gina's babbling voice droning on and on about the wonders that they were encountering the further they explored this hidden city. But, as the pair continued on their exploration, Brittany couldn't shake the nagging feeling that they were being watched. The pair finally reached the end of the tunnel they were following, the large gallery before them, causing the pair to whistle in admiration. A stone pillar stood in the center of the gallery, a pillar of bluish light surrounding the object, causing the minerals in the stone to shine like small jewels. Gina immediately made her way towards the pillar, giggling like a schoolgirl, as she began taking pictures of the symbols that adored the stone column. Gina, I really think we should head back. We haven't been able to reach Brianna this entire time, and something doesn't seem. Gina spun around, pulling her plunger gun out, as she looked around for what had just scared Brittany. What, Brittany, what are you doing? Gina grinned, as she watched her sister clutching to a stalactite, her dull claws scrabbling, as she tried to stay off the ground. Snake. There's a snake down there. I hate snakes. Gina looked at the ground, grinning, as she looked at a small garter snake slowly slithering along the floor towards her and the pillar. As the small reptile made its way towards the illuminated pillar, Gina walked back towards her sister and grinned at her fearful reaction. Oh come on, it's harmless. It's probably more scared of you than you are of it. Gina shook her head when she heard a surprisingly deep voice from behind her, the words that were uttered causing the woman to freeze. No, actually, I'm not afraid of her. And me, harmless. Yeah, I don't think so. Gina slowly turned back to the pillar, the small snake having somehow climbed the column, and was now watching the pair intently. Gina's eyes widened as she backed away slowly, her sister falling to the ground and joining her as the small snake began to laugh at the frightened pair. Gina, did that snake just talk? As Gina nodded dumbly, Brittany looked at the creature before them with wide eyes as she stood next to her sister. Ah, such fear I can taste in the air, it's intoxicating. You two will make a fine meal for my brethren and I, but how about we soften you up a bit beforehand? I always like my meat to be tenderized before I feast. As Gina and Brittany began to back away from the pillar, the snake lowered its snout to the top of the pillar, the stone column glowing brightly, as a loud rumbling echoed throughout the cavern. A loud crash echoed behind the girls, causing the pair to spin around, as a large stone golem destroyed the entrance to the tunnel, blocking off the pair's escape route, and forcing them to back away from the slowly advancing construct. As the pair came closer to the center of the room and stone pillar, more golems began to form from the piles of rubble, their numbers growing, as the small snake chuckled loudly. Ah, our loyal guardians, follow your orders, and kill these intruders, throw their broken bodies in the pit, so that we may feast. Brittany growled, as she ran forward, her fists slashing out with a powerful combo, sending the golem that she had hit skidding a few feet back. Brittany watched in surprise, as the silent construct stood slowly, advanced on the now worried Warchita, as she nudged Gina. Gina, got any bright ideas? Gina narrowed her gaze, as she activated her wrist comp, tapping in a long series of keys that caused a beam of light to surround her. As the light faded, Gina raised a very large cannon, the weapon producing a high-pitched whine, as Gina took aim at the closest construct. Luckily I stocked our hyperspace containers with the heavy weapons last week, you never know when they'll come in handy. You keep him busy, I'll snip him from back here. Gina fired the particle cannon, blasting a hole through the golem in the chest, and cheering loudly, as the construct quickly fell apart. Brittany raced forward, using every ounce of her speed to stay ahead of the half-dozen golems before her, while Gina continued to take pot shots at them, her weapons shearing off arms and legs with ease. But, as quickly as the limbs were destroyed, the constructs rose once more, their missing limbs having regrown, as they continued to advance on the pair. Gina began to back away from the advancing golems, her cannon firing rapidly until a high-pitched alarm sounded, causing Gina to throw the weapon to the ground. Damn it, overheated. But before Gina could summon another weapon for herself, a scaly body wrapped itself around the frightened girl, the heavy coils of the reptile capturing the blonde, and laughing loudly, as Gina thrashed around. Ah, the pleasure of combat, it has been so long. And I had almost forgotten how it felt to use my true body, not that pitiful form I used to patrol the ruins. A small piece of advice, never turn your back on a summon that you don't know, it could be the last mistake you ever make. Goodbye troublesome girl, say hello to my brothers and sisters at the bottom of the chasm. With that the snake flicked its tail towards the chasm, its coils unraveling in the air, and sending Gina flying over the edge. Gina looked back at her sister in shock, her surprised look causing Brittany to run towards her, tears in her eyes, as she reached out to her falling sister. Gina. Naruto grimaced, as he dove off the ledge, Brianna's cries urging him on, as he used his futon chakra to catch up with the quickly falling Gina. The blonde genius had her eyes squeezed shut, as she continued to scream, not even noticing that she was no longer alone in her plunge into the abyss. Damn it, Gina, open your eyes. Gina stopped screaming, shock written all over her face, as she stared at the blonde man before her, the surge of hope reflected in her blue eyes, causing Naruto to grin. Go limp, I'm gonna grab you. As soon as the shinobi saw the young explorer's muscles relax, he released another blast of futon chakra that he had been gathering, blasting forward with surprising speed, and slamming into the falling girl. Naruto wrapped the near hysterical girl in his arms, while another burst of chakra riding the pair, as they fell feet first towards the bottom of the pit. Naruto looked into Gina's odd eyes, as he grinned roguishly. Hey, fancy meeting you here, you fall this way often. Gina snorted, and burst out laughing, as the pair continued to fall, Naruto's grin slowly fading, as he pulled his right hand free of Gina's body, the girl in his other arm looking at a rescuer, as he sighed. What is it? Naruto took a deep breath, as he thrust his hand towards the nearby wall, biting back a scream, as his chakra clung to the rock, but wasn't enough to protect his hand, the sharp rock slicing into his palm, and fingers, as the pair's wild fall began to slow, the shinobi finally letting out a grunt, as they jerked to a halt, blood running down the wall, as he gripped the stone wall firmly. That hurt. You okay? Gina looked at the bleeding hand that was the only thing stopping the pair from falling, and began to tear up, her mouth moving soundlessly, as she tried to answer the man that had saved her. Naruto grinned, as he used his arm around Gina to squeeze her reassuringly, chuckling, as he looked up at the ledge he had jumped from. Wow, we sure did fall a long way. The name's Naruto, by the way, think you could put your arms around my neck? I'm going to need both of my arms to get us out of here. Gina quickly did, as she was told, wrapping her arms tightly around the man's neck, as he used his free hand to slide her around his body, settling Gina on his back. Naruto chuckled at the girl's legs wrapped around him, both of his hands now gripping the wall, as he looked back up. This shouldn't take too much shit, that's not good. Gina frowned in confusion, watching, as her rescuer looked over his shoulder, his eyes narrowing, as he frowned. swallowing loudly. Gina slowly looked over her shoulder, her eyes widening, as a massive snake rose up, its fang maw wide open, as it lunged towards its prey. Brianna looked down the black depths of the chasm, her armor showing the falling pair, as they hit each other, and Naruto managed to stop them both from plunging towards the bottom. Looking up towards where Gina had fallen from, Brianna could hear the sounds of someone fighting, a relieved smile forming, as she recognized the sounds of enraged war Cheetah, and she activated her comm systems again. Cheetah, you okay up there? Bri, they killed Gina. They threw her. She's alive. Naruto grabbed her before she could go splat, and they looked like they were okay. Brianna waited a moment before a relieved sigh passed over the comm channel, causing the young woman to grin. Oh thank God, what the heck is Naruto? Is this some kind of weird device the two of you came up with in case something like this would happen? Cause if it is you should have told me, damn it. I was scared half to death that I was gonna have to tell mom and dad what happened to her. Brianna grinned as she shook her head. No, Naruto's a guy. According to him, he just happened to be passing by at the right time to save us. Silence over the comm channel met Brianna's declaration, and the young woman was afraid she had lost the signal. Passing by while we are in a 15,000-year-old temple over 4 clicks in the air, and there is no way that he could have known we were here. Brianna rolled her eyes and nodded as she crossed her arms under her chest. You know, that's what I said too, so how's it going up there? The sound of stone crunching against stone was the only response for a moment, as Brianna waited patiently for her sister to respond. Oh you know, duking it out with a half a dozen ancient stone golems, the usual. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, there's also a freaking talking snake here. The thing is longer than the car. And it won't stop trying to bite me. Brianna's eyes widened, leaned over, and looked at Gina and Naruto, her face paling, as she saw a much larger snake rise out of the darkness, and stop right behind the hanging pair. I wouldn't complain if Gina and Naruto are about to be attacked by one that's probably 100 times larger than the one you're stuck with. Well shoot it then. Brianna grinned, as she pulled her plasma rifle free, lining up the shot, and grinning evilly. Roger, fire in the hole. Naruto growled, as the fanged reptile lunged at him and Gina, but a brilliant blast of energy slammed into the beast, stunning it just long enough for Naruto to bring his feet up to the wall, and push off, sending both himself and Gina into a backflip towards the reeling reptile. As Naruto landed in a crouch on the slowly recovering summon, he grinned when he looked up, and saw another ledge within his range, and using combination of his muscles and his chakra Naruto leaped upward, the pair launching towards his goal, as the reptile was flung back into the darkness that it had crawled out of. Reaching out with his hand, Naruto grabbed onto the ledge, and deftly pulled both himself and Gina onto it, letting the scared girl go, as he put his hands on his knees, and caught his breath. Whew, now I know how everyone else felt when I just went and spanned the high end like they were candy. It sucks using your own internal chakra. Naruto sighed in relief, while Gina gasped loudly for air, as she struggled to control her fear. Naruto knelt down, removing Gina's fedora, and gently ruffling her hair, as the girl looked at him in shock. Hey, we're okay, I won't let anything hurt you in here. After all, I already saved your youngest sister, I gotta save all 3 of you, and make it a complete set. Naruto grinned, as he placed Gina's fedora back on her head, looking over the edge of their perch, as he reached into his pouch. As he removed a fist-sized canister, and tested the item's weight in his palm while he looked down at the black abyss with a calculating expression, Gina looked at the gadget with obvious interest. What's that? Naruto looked over at Gina, and grinned, as he held the cylinder between his fingers, allowing Gina to lean in close, and inspect the item. Oh, it's one of my own designs, it's a flashbang. I thought it may be a good idea to see what we're up against. Hey, I know, how about throwing it down there? Gina pointed at herself in surprise, as Naruto dropped the device in her hand, and grinned, gesturing to the dark abyss below them. Gina leaned over the ledge, and let the device go, the darkness quickly swallowing the cylinder, as it dropped rapidly. Gina leaned over the edge to watch, but Naruto's strong grip pulled her back from the edge, and he shook his head. You may not want to watch it go off, it's pretty powerful. Gina nodded, as she watched Naruto cover his eyes, the young explorer doing the same, and not a moment too soon, as the device went off, having finally hit the ground. The flash was so powerful that it even penetrated Gina's shut eyes, and caused her vision to be filled with spots of light, while she heard the concussive blast that accompanied the flare. Gina tried to blink the spots away, and was just able to make out Naruto leaning over the ledge once more, looking at the floor where the flashbang continued to burn. As Gina's vision finally cleared, the young scientist looked at the floor, and squinted, her eyes barely able to make out anything other than the stones themselves. Naruto looked at the young woman, saw her squinting, and whipped a rock towards the ground, causing what appeared to be normal rock to ripple, and move, as thousands of snakes moved away from the incoming missile, their angry hissing causing Naruto to sigh. Yeah, I didn't think that would really do anything to them, and I'm not leaving those guys there, no one should have to fight those things. Well, I guess it's time to pull out the big guns. But first things first, getting you to safety cage Bushin no Jutsu. Gina coughed loudly and waved her arms in front of her face as a cloud of smoke formed around Naruto, the cloud that quickly dissipated and showed that the pair were no longer alone, as three identical copies of the man were standing against the wall, each of them waving cheerily as Gina's mouth dropped as she pointed at the clones, her silence causing Naruto to grin at her as he crossed his arms over his chest. What? Never seen someone make clones of themselves before? No? How the heck did you do that? Are they holograms or are they actually real? Maybe magic. Naruto laughed as he gestured at the three copies of himself. Oh, they're real enough. Look, I promise I'll explain everything when we get out of here, but for now I need you to go with one of these guys and join Brianna. I'll be alone soon, I just need to give these snakes a little present. Gina watched in fascination as one of the clones landed on the ledge beside her, scooped the excited young woman in his arms, and leapt into the air once more, clinging to the wall with his chakra as he ran up the side of the chasm wall, leaving a grinning Naruto with the two of the clones. As the pair of clones landed on the ledge, Naruto closed his eyes as he reached out to the natural energy surrounding him, fondly remembering his old teachings as he balanced out the natural energy with his physical and spiritual energy, the Senjutsu chakra flooding his system as he entered Senin Moto once more. It's just like riding a bike, you never forget. Now, for you assholes. Naruto raised a hand and gathered chakra, his clones also raising their arms as they formed the shell and helped create the rotation. Soon a loud buzzing could be heard as Naruto held a fully formed Rasen Shuriken above his head. Crouching low, Naruto leapt forward, his powerful legs destroying the ledge as he was launched from it. As he sailed towards the other side of the chasm, Naruto threw the Rasen Shuriken towards the ground, the shinobi quickly leaping towards the girls waiting for him above. Brianna watched as her shot disoriented the snake long enough for Naruto to use it as a springboard to get to safety, a smile on her face as she watched the blonde comfort her clearly shaken sister. When Brianna watched Gina drop something from their vantage point, she frowned for a moment and wondered what it was. Seconds later, Brianna's onboard computer polarized her faceplate, protecting her from the brilliant burst of light, causing the half-word cheetah to cry out as she pulled her helmet free so she could rub her stinging eyes. Brianna, what the heck was that light? Did you do that? Brianna finally managed to rub the spots from her vision before she answered her sister, wiping the tears from her eyes after having seen such a bright light. No, that was Naruto and Gina. Some kind of flashbang. Damn it, my eyes are killing me. Just as Brianna's eyes stopped tearing up, the youngest stickers saw an arm reach over the edge, and moments later Gina was helped up, while Naruto easily pulled himself onto the ledge. Naruto. You saved my sister, my hero. Naruto grunted, as he was glommed onto by a happy young woman, the close contact causing the shinobi to blush faintly. You might want to save the hugs for the boss, he'll be up in a second. Brianna let go of Naruto, cocking her head to the side, as she tried to understand what she had just been told when a high-pitched buzzing caught her attention. Brianna joined her sister, as the pair stared towards the bottom of the chasm, their attention caught by a flare of pale blue light. Brianna turned towards Naruto when he also looked over the edge, grabbing his arm and pointing at the light. What the heck is that thing? Naruto turned back towards Brianna and grinned as a chuckle escaped his lips. That would be the boss. You may want to get away from the edge, it's about to get really windy. Just as Naruto said this, Brianna and Gina watched the point of light leap across the chasm, and once it was in the center it suddenly plunged towards the bottom of the chasm, and now visible Naruto began to bounce his way towards the girls. Brianna looked at Naruto beside her with a wild-eyed expression, and then back again at the ascending Naruto below her. Told you I wasn't the real one. A burst of smoke, and Naruto was gone, Brianna's jaw dropping, as she watched the other Naruto pull himself over the ledge, his face paling, as he saw how close the girls were to the edge. Move. Naruto gathered both girls in his arms, and dove to the ground, covering them just before his technique hit. Hurricane-class winds toward the girls, both of which screamed loudly, as Naruto covered the pair, and protected them from the brunt of the attack. As the winds finally died down, Brianna looked up at a panting Naruto that was holding out his hand, as he stood over the silent pair of girls. Hey, miss me. Brianna threw herself into Naruto's arms, thanking the blonde profusely for saving Gina. Gina watched the spectacle before her, and grinned, as she looked over the man that had saved her, a predatory glint quickly forming in her eyes. Tall, handsome, powerful, and sweet too, what else could I ask for? Before Gina could continue her line of thought, a loud squawk from Brianna's comm unit caught their attention, reminding the trio that they were missing someone. Naruto freed himself from Brianna's hold, and ran towards the far wall, leaping onto it, and running straight up. As he ascended the wall, a faint cry reached his ears, making the shinobi smirk, as he increased his speed. What the hell is going on down there? Brittany growled, as she dodged another massive stone limb, batting the appendage to the side, and hammering on the stone, but all she accomplished was bruising her knuckles. Fortunately, her healing factor had been keeping up with her battle, repairing any damage done to her soon after it occurred. But it's not going to last. Eventually I'm gonna run out of steam, and then a fanged mouth lunged towards the distracted war cheetah, its lunge forcing Brittany to roll away from the creature, and right into the oncoming fist of one of the golems. As Brittany squeezed her eyes shut and pulled her arms inward to protect herself, the attack hit, and Brittany was flung into the ground and went right over the edge of the cliff, the wind whipping around her as she started to fall. But before Brittany could even scream, a powerful pair of hands grabbed the falling cheetah, and suddenly Brittany was back on solid ground, the mystery person crouching beside Brittany, as he panted softly. Damn, there better not be a fourth digger's sister I don't know about, cause I'm getting really tired here. Brittany blinked as she watched the blonde-haired man stand up, stretching his muscles, as he looked at the group of enemies arrayed before him. Spotting another snake, Naruto raised his finger and pointed at the loudly hissing reptile. One chance, let us leave, and you don't die, snake. The snake hissed loudly, pulling itself up and letting loose a loud laugh. Ah, the humor of humans. The only beings that even stand a chance of defeating me, and my brothers are shinobi. The confident reptile stopped speaking, as Naruto grinned, his arms crossed over his chest. The reptile narrowed its eyes, as it studied the human before it more closely when the reptile shrank back in fear, finally noticing the headband that the blonde-haired man wore. No. It can't be, you kind have vanished from this world. Naruto grinned, as he stepped forward, his hands coming up and forming a cross. What can I say, I was always the unpredictable one. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Brittany stayed on the ground, as 6 exact duplicates of the blonde-haired man appeared, watching, as they all raced towards the golems, and started to literally tear them apart. The original blonde ran towards the talking snake, pulling a pair of knives from a pouch on his back, and slashed at the reptile, forcing it back, as he kept advancing. Cheetah, you okay up there? What's Naruto doing now? Brittany slowly activated her calm, as she watched a massive brawl before her. Brianna, I'm watching a blonde-haired guy create multiple copies of himself, all of which are tearing into these guys like they're nothing but wet paper towels. Who the heck is this guy? A loud laugh from the comm system was Brianna's only answer, causing Brittany to growl in annoyance. All 6 of the copies had finished with the golems, so the only foe remaining was the snake. Brittany watched, as the 6 clones ganged up on it, forcing the creature into a corner, as they all were suddenly holding glowing spheres of energy. The original Naruto turned around, and flashed a wan smile at Brittany. You might want to turn away, this isn't going to be pretty. Brittany closed her eyes, and winced, as she heard a loud series of squelching sounds, followed by a small explosion, and the sound of falling rock. A hand on Brittany's shoulder caused the young war cheetah to look up at the tired face of her rescuer, as he walked away from the snake's grave. Okay, I'm done now. So now can we please get out of here before anything else tries to kill you 3? Naruto shook his head at the situation he was in now. If only Iro-Senin could see me now, he'd probably die from a heart attack. After the blonde shinobi had carried Brittany down towards her sisters, he had fallen to his knees, the constant fighting, and use of chakra finally winning out over his stubborn refusal to give up. Moments later he felt 2 pairs of arms gently lift him up, and then the shinobi blushed brightly, as both Gina and Brianna maneuvered themselves under his arms, and supported the drained man, smiling at him brightly, as the quartet slowly made their way out of the deadly complex. As they walked, Naruto began to explain some of the things the girls had seen and encountered. Those snakes you saw. They're a form of evolved animal that can use chakra to bend space and time through the use of the contract. Find a human that can use chakra as well, get the snakes to respect him a little, and bam. Instant partner to fight with you. Those golems were probably someone's idea of a security system, but they only work against someone that can't use chakra. I'll bet there was a summoner in charge here, but he either died or was killed off without handing the contract off to someone, meaning that the summons turned on everyone else. Not exactly the way I'd want to go. As the quartet finally reached the entrance of the temple, the Digger's sisters covered their eyes while Naruto growled and squeezed his eyes shut, blinking, as the bright light brought tears to his eyes. Ugh, I hate this part of coming back to the surface, damn light always makes my eyes water. Gina and Brianna both giggled as they walked towards the car, Brittany racing ahead and activating the light gate to send all of the gear they had brought home. Just as the girls were about to ease the tired blonde into the car, he pulled himself free of the girls and took a deep breath, forming a cross sign once more, and another clone popped into existence. Nodding at the clone, Naruto grinned as the construct popped itself, and moments later a loud rumble caused the girls to grab onto the car and steady themselves. Sorry, I had to destroy that place, there's no telling what else was lurking around in there. Brianna jumped into the back seat, and moments later a very tired Naruto joined her, resting his head on her lap, as the girl grinned softly. It's okay, just sleep, we'll wake you when we get home. Just rest, you saved us all. Naruto slowly closed his eyes, and soon was asleep, his light snores causing Gina and Brittany to grin. Brianna looked up and smirked at Gina, an expression that caused the oldest Digger's sister to frown. What's with the look, Bri? Brianna continued to smirk, as she gently played with Naruto's hair, as he silently rested in her lap. I call first dibs, I saw him first, sis. Gina growled loudly, as she began to stalk towards a grinning Brianna, only to be pulled back by Brittany. Okay you two, home first then you can fight over the guy. Gina sighed, as she nodded, falling into the driver's seat, and taking off towards Atlanta. Several days later. Naruto never really had any issues waking up. One moment he was sleeping soundly, and then next he was awake. After all years of shinobi training does that to anyone. It also makes said shinobi act as if they're still asleep while they use their other senses to determine where they are, and if there is danger nearby. Naruto's nose twitched as he detected the faint scent of antiseptic. His ears also picked up a constant beeping, as well. The strangest part was that Naruto could have sworn that he was swimming. The feel of liquid surrounding him was impossible to ignore, as well as the fact that he was completely naked. Well, that's a new one. 3 hot girls stripping me, and taking advantage of me in my sleep. Yeah, I could only be so lucky. Naruto decided to open his eyes, and was surprised to see that he was in a large room, its lights turned down low, as Gina and Brianna worked on a set of computers in front of him. Looking around, Naruto saw he was in an upright tube, a breathing mask supplying him with air, as he tapped on the glass gently. Brianna looked up, a wide grin on her face, as she pressed a button on her console. Hey Naruto. How do you feel? The blonde held up a hand, indicating he wanted a moment, and Brianna nodded, as she sat down. Naruto closed his eyes, the energy of his chakra having restored itself, which caused the blonde to grin. As he dove deeper into his mind, appeared in a large open space, one that contained a large crystal structure that was sealed behind a set of bars. Reaching forward, Naruto placed his hands on a metal plate that held the bars shut, his hands sinking into the material, as the gates opened wide. Moments later an intricate series of 12 rings were revealed to the grinning blonde, each of them flashing brightly, as he ran his chakra through the interlocking arrays. A series of clicks, and the first segment began to slowly open, an action that caused the blonde to fondly pat the crystal before him. Closing his eyes once more, Naruto nodded his head, and gave a thumbs up to the girls before him. Gina smiled, as she pressed several controls, and the liquid he was bobbing in slowly drained from the tube, leaving Naruto standing, as the regenerator opened up, allowing the shinobi to yawn loudly, as he stretched his arms over his head. Naruto watched, as the blushing pair walked forward, a towel held tightly in Gina's grip. Naruto grinned, as he took the offered towel, a confused look, as Gina's blush continued to grow, as she stared at Naruto, and refused to let the towel go. Gina finally blinked, and nervously chuckled, as she let the towel go, covering her flaming cheeks, while Brianna continued to stare hungrily, all while a nonchalant Naruto tied the towel around his midsection, and began stretching lightly. Wow, I feel awesome. How long was I out for? Brianna and Gina continued to stare at the man, as he worked the kinks out of his muscles. That is until he waved his hand in front of Gina's eyes, the young woman giggling nervously, as she put her hands behind her back. 4 days, Naruto. We tried to wake you up when we got home, but you wouldn't no matter what we tried, so we decided to put you in the regenerator, just in case. Naruto nodded, as he looked around the large room he was in, whistling appreciatively at the design. Nice place you got here. I'm sure Ba-chan would be green with envy if she had access to this. At Gina's confused look, Naruto laughed, and waved his hand in front of himself. Never mind, old friend of mine. Anyways, what's wrong with Brianna? She hasn't said a word to me since I got out. Gina looked over at her sister, and shook her head, as the half-word cheetah continued to stare at Naruto hungrily. The eldest Digger's sister, knowing how she felt, but deciding it was more important that she answer Naruto. Well, she's just enjoying the view, after all. Gina trailed off, as she blushed, and Naruto looked down, confused for a moment before he snapped his fingers. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to go, and get some clothes. Give me a minute while I make a run down to my room for some clean ones. Just as Naruto was about to walk out of the infirmary, Gina grabbed the blonde, and hauled him back towards her, her narrowed gaze causing Naruto to grin. What do you mean, your room? Just where exactly are you headed off to? What a minute, you're the reason so many strange things have been happening around here. What room are you living in? Naruto crossed his arms over his chest, and laughed, as he nodded. Yep, surprise. Uzumaki Naruto, contracted 6 months ago to watch over Gina, Brittany, and Brianna Diggers. Special permission was provided to live on site, as long as you 3 didn't notice I was here. I am to keep out of sight until such time, as now what did he say again? Oh yeah, till the girls do something completely insane, and get themselves into some kind of trouble they can't get out of themselves. And, as for the room I'm living in, I've got a counter question. Just how often do you go down to the long-term storage room you have on sub-level 2? Seriously, that place needs a floor-to-ceiling clean like no other room I have ever stayed in. Gina's jaw dropped, as Naruto continued to speak, her genius-level intellect replaying what the blonde had just said, and it suddenly clicked in her mind. Narrowing her gaze, Gina grabbed Naruto, and walked over to one of the wall-mounted communication units, rapidly entering in a string of commands, as Naruto stood there grinning. Brianna walked over, and latched onto Naruto's free arm, a content grin plastered on her face, as the trio waited for the call to connect. Moments later, Juliet Digger's smiling face appeared on the screen, as she waved at her daughters. Hello girls, how can I see you finally met Naruto. Did you girls get mixed up in some way over your head again? Gina growled, as she pointed at the grinning blonde beside her, her angry glare causing her mother to grin calmly at her eldest daughter. Mom, what the heck is going on here? How come I'm just finding out now that there has been an insanely hot guy living in our house for 6 months? Seriously, what did I do wrong to stop you from telling me about him? Julia looked at her oldest daughter, and a shrugging Naruto, when she finally noticed how close her daughters were standing to the young man with them, and her expression changed to a devilish smirk. Oh, I'm sorry Gina, it must have slipped my mind. Why don't you come over for dinner tonight, and we'll talk about it, get everything cleared up, and in the open. How does that sound? Before Gina could respond, she watched with wide eyes, as an exact copy of Naruto appeared beside Julia, one that was also wearing a towel that looked strangely familiar. Looking sharply to her left, Gina pointed at the now fully clothed Naruto being held between herself and Brianna, and shrieked, the two girls never having noticed a switch occurring in the first place. Geez, Gina, what's the holy shit, when did you get dressed? More importantly, how did you do it without us noticing it? Julia finally decided enough was enough, as she burst out laughing, Naruto beside her joining in, as he walked away from the comm terminal. Remember girls, dinner tonight, and all will be revealed. Bye. As the pair of girls stared at the blank terminal, the Naruto clone they were holding began to chuckle, causing both girls to look at him instead. Well, I better get out of here too, later girls. As the cloud of rapidly dissipating smoke appeared, the only indication that the clone had ever existed, and both girls stared at each other for several moments. Screw dibs, he's mine. Brianna glared at her sister, and crossed her arms under her chest, a glare appearing on Gina's face, as well as sparks appeared between both sisters. Brittany chose this time to walk in, the staring match between her sisters, causing the Warcheetah to sigh. And here we go, the battle for the boyfriend begins. Round 1, fight. Naruto crossed his arms over his chest, as he observed the crystal structure before him. A thoughtful humming escaped Naruto, as he stepped closer, flicking a finger against the initial ring of segmented locks, a clear tone causing the blonde to nod. Good, it's still as solid as the day I made it. Well, give or take a year we'll be back to causing chaos again, old buddy. Naruto closed his eyes, and moments later he was back in the room Julia and Theo had provided for him in the mansion. Yawning loudly, Naruto pulled on a casual pair of pants and a shirt, and quietly made his way from the room towards the basement, the sound of Julia working out making Naruto grin. Leaning against the door jamb, Naruto watched, as the arms master of Jade continued to run through her daily exercises. As Naruto watched, Julia made a mistake that had been plaguing the martial arts master for years, the almost traditional air causing the shinobi to chuckle softly and shake his head. You're still coming in too low with that back fist. Almost 20 years, and you still haven't gotten it right. Julia gave Naruto the evil eye, an expression that caused Naruto to shrug, as he placed his hands in his pockets. Julia smiled, as she finished her cool-down kata, a smirk growing on her face, as she grabbed a towel hanging from her weapons rack. What about you, Mr. Big Bad Shinobi Master? I think you're gonna need some more practice. It sounds like you're out of shape after all that downtime. I mean, if saving 3 young women is enough to tire you out, then something must be wrong. Naruto laughed, as the pair walked out of the basement, and met up with Theo in his library. The Archmage looked up from the time he was studying, and smiled warmly at the pair before him, as he placed the magical book on his desk. Julia went behind the desk, and settled down in her husband's lap, an action that caused Naruto to grin, as he sat down in one of the chairs facing the man and his wife. So Naruto, it sounds like the girls had quite an adventure the other day. Nothing too serious occurred, I hope. Naruto sighed, as he leaned forward, his entire demeanor switching from playful to serious in a second. Serious enough that if I hadn't been there they would have all died. Brianna would have been killed by a group of stone golems, Brittany would have held her own for a time before tiring out, and being killed, and fed to the summoned snakes that were living in that complex. Gina, she would have fallen to her death, hers would have at least been quick in comparison. I think it's time I step out of the shadows, and help them directly. Theo stroked his beard in contemplation, as he nodded, his arm wrapping around Julia's waist, as he sat back in his chair. Well, I just want to thank you for everything you've done for us. I also have a feeling that the girls feel the same way. Julia laughed loudly, as she grinned at the blonde before her, as a predatory smirk appeared on her face. Though, I saw that the girls have warmed right up to you when they called, I thought you were going to have to use a crowbar to get free. I get the impression that those two got a free show, am I wrong? Naruto sighed, as he shrugged, quickly rising to his feet, as he turned to leave the library. My research in current history has introduced me to a phrase that's perfect for just such an occasion. I'm pretty sure it goes like this, I plead the fifth. Now, I got a few things I need to get working on, so I'll see you both at dinner tonight. As Naruto exited the room, Theo looked over at his wife, and glared at her. And I'm not giving him the normal burning skull of doom treatment, because... Julia laughed, as she kissed her husband gently, running a hand gently along his cheek. Dear, until you attain the same level of power that the Kyuubi has, you're not even going to get the man to flinch. Besides, Naruto isn't going to do anything to hurt the girls. Theo nodded sadly, as Julia kissed him once more. That's not what I'm afraid of, I'm afraid of them doing something to him. Gina stood in front of her mirror, smirking, as she held the dress she was going to wear to dinner tonight against her body. Gina ran her hands down the strapless black dress slowly, grinning, as she felt the smooth silk below her fingers, as she thought of how Naruto would react when he saw her. He better appreciate this. I normally don't go all out like this, but well, he's worth it. After all, he did save all of us. Add in the fact that he's so mysterious, add in that hot body, and you get wow. Gina grinned, as she laid her dress on her bed, her happy expression fading for a moment, as she walked towards her desk, gently picking up a badly corroded piece of metal, one that had a small scrap of fabric clinging to it. Gina stared at the item for several moments before placing the item in her purse, nodding her head firmly, as she exited her room to see how Brianna was making out on her own hunt for an acceptable outfit. As Gina entered her sister's room, the young genius couldn't help but laugh out loud, as Brianna was tearing through her closet, tossing outfits on her bed, as she dug deeper and deeper into her wardrobe. No, hell no. Damn it, I can't find anything to wear. How will I get Naruto to notice me unless I look absolutely perfect for him? As Brianna sank to her knees, Gina looked over her shoulder at a grinning Brittany. How long has she been doing this? Brittany laughed, as she walked into Brianna's room, and looked at the remaining outfits in her sister's closet, as she continued her conversation with Gina. Oh, pretty much, as soon as she found out about the dinner tonight. Stripe will be there too, hope you don't mind that I invited him. Gina shook her head, as Brittany pulled out a red sheath dress, Brianna's eyes widening, as she leaped towards her sister, and wrapped her in a tight hug. That's perfect, thanks Cheetah. As Brianna modeled her newly acquired evening wear, Brittany smirked, as she raised a finger in triumph. What can I say, it's a talent. But we better hurry, or else we're gonna be late. Wait, so Gina locked Brianna out of the med lab? Why? Cheetah laughed, as she hung off the arm of her boyfriend Stripe, sharing stories of what had occurred over the last few days, as the quartet made their way towards the Digger's mansion. While Muffin, Naruto was still in the regenerator. When Brianna left to use the bathroom, Gina slipped in and scrambled the lock codes so that she couldn't get back in. Of course, our youngest sister wasn't going to take this lying down, so in retaliation, she reprogrammed the Herberts to disassemble Gina's lab. One anonymous call later, and Gina is racing out of medlab towards her personal lab, and Brianna took her spot observing Naruto, after she had scrambled the lock codes again, just to be sure. Brianna giggled in triumph, as Gina glared at her sister, her hands clenched into white-knuckled fists, as she growled at her youngest sister. Stupid prank ruined a week-long experiment. You better be careful, Bri, my vengeance is slow, but sure. Brianna stuck out her tongue cutely to taunt her sister. As the quartet finally arrived at the Digger's mansion, the girls walking right in, and smiling, as they saw their mother waiting to welcome them. Gina and Brianna both looked around expectantly, their enthusiasm dimming slightly when they didn't see the object of their affections. Mom, where is Naruto? Gina was giving her mother the dreaded puppy dog eyes, a move that seemed to be wasted on the older woman, as she patted her daughter's head, and motioned at the room behind her. Your father heard about how you two were getting close to the boy, and decided that he would educate him on proper etiquette. Julia smirked internally at the horrified looks her daughters were giving her, the well-dressed pair racing towards the sealed room, and ripping the door open. As when the girls froze at the scene before them, blinking, as they watched their father laugh loudly, as he shared a drink with the smiling Naruto, the two men standing at the sidebar in the living room. Both Gina and Brianna froze, as they took in the sight before them. Naruto's lean body was now clothed in an expensive Armani suit, the fabric tailored to show off his toned physique, as he continued gesturing wildly, as the two men continued to talk. A royal blue dress shirt, and a burnt orange necktie completed the ensemble, one that caused both Gina and Brianna to squeal internally, as they continued watching the pair. Gina's eyes caught some movement near Naruto's belt, and bit her lower lip when she saw his forehead protector tied to his belt, the metal plate shining, as the light played along it, while the man that owned the piece of equipment continued to move around. If what I suspect is true, how can that be possible? I still can't get over what he said when I tried to tell him at the end of the book. No. Not spoilers. Ah, priceless. So, after he closed his eyes so he couldn't read my lips, both Sakura and I grabbed the bells, ending the test. Kakashi was so annoyed with himself that he hadn't finished the book after that. I just had to get one last dig on him. After all, I had no idea how the damn thing ended. I never got past 10 pages. Naruto grinned, as Theo laughed loudly, the archmage slapping the young man's back, as the pair slowly sipped their drinks. Oh Naruto, you are truly deserving of your title, I will admit that. Naruto grinned, as he turned around, stopping, as he was greeted by the sight of Brianna and Gina staring at the pair. Hello girls, I see you made it finally. I thought Naruto here would have to entertain your mother, and myself for the rest of the night. Naruto grinned, as he walked towards the blushing girls, and bowed before them. Ladies, a pleasure to see you once more. And may I say, you both look stunning. So, he's hungry. Gina and Brianna giggled, as Naruto instantly swapped between cordial and proper to loud and spirited in a heartbeat, the blonde grinning widely, as he made his way towards the dining room. Before the girls joined the upbeat shinobi, they looked their gazes on their father, as he slowly finished his drink. Daddy, you wouldn't be trying to scare Naruto off, would you? Theo looked up at Brianna's innocent question, an internal smirk on his face, as his daughters tried their best to project an intimidating aura, hoping to stop the man from running off with a perfectly good boyfriend. Of course not. Now let's go and eat before Naruto starts. That man has a bottomless pit for a stomach. The Digger's family and their guests were a rambunctious group of diners, swapping stories and jokes as the dinner progressed. The favors for the girls were the ones regarding Naruto's time as a child, the multiple instances when he outwitted his village guards at every corner, as he waged his one-man prank war against his home and its occupants. Though, I was definitely hell on two legs, and people recognized it. Lots of shopkeepers either refused to sell me items or raised their prices multiple times over. Of course, such tactics were answered by an unending barrage of pranks, until I was satisfied they had learned their lesson. As a group of clones served dessert, Gina was biting her lower lip as she tried to glance at Naruto out of the corner of her eye. An indulgent smile appeared on Naruto's face as he closed his eyes and sighed. Go ahead and ask your questions, Gina. It's as obvious as your beauty that you have several you want to ask me. A blushing Gina stammered as she looked at the other occupants of the table, their silent laughter causing the woman to take hold of her courage and narrow her gaze at the shinobi beside her. Your forehead protector. I want to see it again. Naruto's laughter trailed off as he looked at the woman beside him, a calculating look as he untied the requested item from the belt. The way you say that makes me think you recognize the significance of what you're asking for. Alright, you can see it. Naruto folded the battered cloth in his hand so that the metal plate was facing upward and held it towards Gina, the young genius holding her hands out as she gently received the item. Gina's family watched as the archaeologist began to examine the piece of armor, her tongue peeking out of the corner of her mouth as she began collecting clues from all of her available senses. This metal, it's high tensile steel, but the process of its manufacture is something much different than what we use nowadays. The cloth is a type of linen, similar in composition to any linen clothing you can buy at a store, but this weave is bizarre. And this symbol, I knew I had seen it before, but it's impossible that you have this in your possession. How did you get something like this? Naruto took back his forehead protector as he ran his fingers lovingly over the pits, scratches, and the stylized leaf emblem, before tying the band around his head once more. It's not so hard to find one of these when you come from the village where they were made. Konohagakure no Sato, the village hidden in the leaves. Considered to be the most powerful of all shinobi villages in the land of Mu. Of course, that information is a little out of date, approximately 15,000 years out of date. Gina's eyes whitened as she gasped, her hands covering her mouth as she stared at the grinning man before her. Brianna dropped her fork in shock as she continued to stare at Naruto. Julia and Theo both smiled as they watched their daughter's reactions, and Brittany. Well, what the heck is a Konohagakure? Naruto looked over at Brittany, a surprised look on his face as he stared at the word cheetah. Moments later he burst out laughing, slapping his hand against the table as he fell back in his chair and laughed loudly as the confused look Brittany was sporting. Oh cheats, don't ever change, ha. So Gina, when did you get a chance to study a forehead protector before? Gina reached into her purse and gently pulled a small metallic shard from the bag, Naruto nodding as he held his hand out. May I? Gina gently placed the item in the shinobi's hand, the blonde passing a critical eye over the item and nodding his head slowly. It's a form of cotton, most likely because the fabric is more breathable. This is probably a protector from Tsuno or Iwa. The metal is similar to my own, but it has a higher density of carbon. You can tell because of the fact it's corroded so much. How old do you think it is? According to carbon dating, about 14,000 years, give or take a century. I found it on a dig in Egypt. It was in the previously undiscovered pyramid. Just who are you, Naruto? Naruto grabbed his fork, spearing the last piece of the cake he had chosen for dessert, and slowly chewed the delicious morsel. The young man swallowed the bite then sat back as he took a deep breath before continuing. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, elite jonin of Konoha. I was selected to be the Hokage when I reached my 21st birthday. Several weeks before I was to take my position, I was working on a new sealing formula, one that would allow entire structures to be phased out of reality. The idea was to use it to help defend the village in case of an attack, since about 5 years earlier one of our enemies managed to decimate our entire village in a single day. If I could get it to work, then poof, the buildings would disappear, and we'd go on the offensive, clearing out the invaders, and then phase the village back into place. An amazing idea on paper, but a real bitch to put into practice. Gina giggled as she thought of several experiments that she had attempted over the years that had fallen into the same category as what Naruto had just described. Brianna leaned forward, her imagination securely held by the story, as she impatiently added in her 2 cents. Awesome. So, what happened? Did you finish this phasing seal Thingy? Naruto laughed loudly, muttering out Thingy, and rested his arm on the table as he adopted a smirk. Well, I certainly thought that I had, so I decided to test it out on my building while I was still inside of it. I know, that has to be one of the dumbest things I could have done, but well, I was kind of an idiot when I was younger. Theo sniggered loudly until Julia elbowed the man in his gut, causing the archmage to cough lightly and adopt a serious expression. Yeah, laugh it up, old man, I'll get you back for that one anyways. I applied the seal, and waited till everyone had left for the day, and activated it. Initially it seemed to work fine, but after a minute or so, I felt as if I was being torn apart piece by piece, and I blacked out. When I woke up, I and the building I was inhabiting were located in the middle of a large meadow. It looked like the forests of Konoha, with one important exception: there was no village. I searched high and low for years, I never found a single structure in all that time. I was truly alone, and in a world that had no human life, plenty of animals and other creatures, but nothing similar to myself. I was alone, well, sorta. Gina raised an eyebrow as she looked at her sisters. The two were cheetahs, shrugging their shoulders as the eldest turned back to the shinobi. How could you have company if you were alone? Naruto sighed as he created 9 clones, each of them standing behind the young man as he stood up. Gina, in all the material you found about Mew, did you ever come across anything called a biju? Maybe a jinchuriki? As Gina shook her head slowly, Naruto turned around to the clones and nodded. 9 bursts of smoke filled the room suddenly, causing the girls to cough lightly as they waved their hands in front of them. As the smoke cleared, everyone's eyes widened at the sight before them. 9 large beasts now stood behind Naruto, each of them identifiable as a type of animal, but there was something about them that was different. Stripe was the first to say anything about it, as he shook his head in wonder. Tails. Naruto nodded as he held his arm out towards the new additions to the room and continued to speak. That's right, they have multiple tails. These are the biju, the separated form of the jubi, the most dangerous creature to ever walk Mew. From the least number of tails to the most, we have Shikaku, Matatabi, Isobu, Sungok, Kakum, Seiken, Chimei, Chiki, and finally Kurama. The biju were the most powerful entities on the entire continent. Wars were fought over these guys for years. Through multiple sealing methods, Shinobi had discovered how to seal these guys into people, making them into living weapons. Think of a normal-looking human that can fire off nukes, and you have an idea of what it was like. They were called jinchuriki, also known as the power of human sacrifice. Gina's jaw dropped as she took all of this in when suddenly she looked over at Naruto, a look of sadness passing over her features. You were one of them. Naruto grinned at the young woman, tapping his nose, as all of the beasts exploded into smoke once more, this time leaving a 9-tailed Kurama standing beside Naruto. That's right, I was the container for Kurama, the 9-tailed demon fox. At first, he was a loudmouth bastard with a piss-poor attitude, but I got him to become a loudmouth partner that would work with me, and he finally became my friend. So, the two of us were trapped on this idyllic planet when we discovered a really big problem. Kurama was dying. It seems that the biju need a small amount of nature chakra when they are separated from their bodies to maintain themselves, so when they are sealed into a person, they absorb small amounts of it through their container. Whatever I did to the seal caused us to be blocked off from the nature chakra around us, meaning that Kurama would slowly fade away over time. So, rather than let that happen, we came up with a plan. Another puff of smoke appeared, and now a large crystal construct sat where Kurama had been, multiple symbols etched into a surface that glittered in the lights, and a dozen segmented rings surrounding the monolith. This is a hibernation chamber. It slows down the functions of any being sealed inside of it to nothing. I placed one around Kurama, and he's been there for the last 15,000 years. I decided to use a less elaborate setup that would allow me to sleep for 100 years at a time. Somehow I had managed to screw up the seal so badly that my normal biological functions were no longer needed. I didn't age, got hungry, heck I didn't even need to use the bathroom. So, every 100 years I would wake up, work on ways of getting the both of us free, and after a few years I'd go back to sleep again. This carried on for thousands of years until one day when I came out of hibernation, I saw something extraordinary. Theo nodded sagely as he leaned forward. The migration to Jade. Naruto nodded happily as he sat back down and grabbed a glass, swallowing the cool water and sighing as he placed the glass on the table once more. That's right, humans and the other magical races had found Jade and were populating it. After observing them and their powers for a few years, I was sure someone would have been able to find me. But that was not to be. There wasn't a single being that I could find that could see me. If I had been able to find the spirit monks, then maybe I would have had a better chance, but they were almost impossible to locate by the time I had awoken. So, I continued on with the cycle of sleep and waking up until a fateful day almost 20 years ago. Flashback almost 20 years ago. Julia sighed as she hefted the large backpack over her shoulder, the familiar weight of a trusty sword secured to her waist as she entered the small village before her. It had been a week since she had been banished back to Jade, a week full of frustration as she realized just what her father-in-law's final spell against her had done. No mage was able to create a portal for Julia to pass back over to Earth. The moment any part of her touched it, the portal would instantly destabilize and collapse. After the third attempt, Julia left the small town she was staying in and found a few stray monsters that she vented her frustrations on. As she entered the town, Julia's pace slowed as she watched a man walking towards her, her eyes narrowing as he seemed to pass through people in front of him, as if they weren't even there. Obviously a thief. Looks like that man is trying to con his buyers out of their money. Hello. Hot redeed at 12 o'clock. I like that. Yes, I do. As Julia watched, the blonde-haired man continued past her, and the mother of two breathed a sigh of relief. That is until she felt a hard sweat on her ass. Freezing immediately, Julia growled, as she spun around, raising her hands, as she leaped at the shocked blonde before her, the male waving his hands before himself, as he tried to back away. Back in the present. Wait, you went, and slapped Mom on the ass. Julia watched all of her girls fall over, clutching at their stomachs, as they continued to laugh at the story they were hearing, a nostalgic smile crossing Julia's features, as she laughed lightly. Naruto chuckled nervously, as he scratched his cheek, and shrugged. Remember, I'd been alone for almost 15,000 years, and I couldn't touch anyone, so I had to make up ways to amuse myself. Of course I end up slapping the current arms master in the ass when she could touch me. Julia grinned, as she cleared her throat, the girls' laughter trailing off, as their mother picked up the story. So yes, Naruto acted like a pervert the first time we met, but that wasn't the end of that encounter. Julia ignored Naruto's disgruntled grumbling at her description of the man, as she continued with the tale. Back to the flashback. Julia grabbed the blonde's throat, and growled, as she squeezed, the man grabbing the grasping hands, and trying to break free from their grip, as his face slowly turned blue. Senior, and I found Julia growling, as she roughly tossed the man towards a building, blinking, as she saw him pass through the wall, and disappear. Moments a loudly coughing blonde reappeared, massaging his neck, as he glared at the redeed before him. You damned maniacal tomboy. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have slapped your ass, but that doesn't oh shit. Julia shrieked loudly, as the blonde dove at her, his arms wrapping around her knees, as he rubbed his face along the woman's thighs. Finally, someone that can see me, you can even touch me. Finally, I'm sure Naruto's voice was suddenly cut off, as Julia lashed out with a powerful punch to the man's jaw, slamming the blonde into the ground where he groaned in pain. Once he was down, Julia began to stomp on the downed man until he was lying twitching on the ground, a wheezing breath letting Julia know that he still lived, but most likely wasn't happy about that fact. Spinning on her heel, Julia stalked out of the town, ignoring the surprised stares of the people around her, but still hearing their hushed whispers as she passed them. What's her problem? Is she sick in the head? It looks like she was fighting nothing but air. Julia's fast walk slowed as she stopped in the middle of the street and looked towards the downed blonde, confusion etched along her brow when she saw that the man she had beaten was gone. Turning away once more, the woman walked out of the town, never noticing a pair of eyes that observed her from a distant rooftop. Then flashback. Needless to say, our first meeting didn't go so well. But, having found someone that could actually touch and interact with me, I decided to do the only rational thing, tail her ass, and get her to listen to the situation before she beat the shit out of me again. Naruto grinned, as Brianna and Brittany both dissolved into giggles, while a blushing Gina tried to hold in her own laughter, as she tried to steer the blonde back towards the story. Naruto grinned, as he gently flicked Brianna in the forehead, causing the girl to pout at him cutely before he continued on. So later on, after I managed to explain the situation to Julia, she found her way back to you all for a day, and let Theo know about the situation. Needless to say he was not convinced that I was real, so I took drastic measures to convince him. Julia blushed hotly, as she glared at the blonde. You flipped my skirt up when he saw me next. Do you have any idea how embarrassing you were when you were phased out of existence? Good lord, it was like having an immature brat of a son. Naruto laughed, as he wiped a tear from his eye. So, after helping Theo realize that I was there, we worked together to devise a method to re-summon myself back to Earth. But, there was a problem. We needed nature chakra to charge the beacon, but there was no way to hand it off to Theo. His hands would just pass through it. Julia could hold it, but still couldn't do anything with it, so I was still stuck. Of course, having someone that I could interact with made it a lot easier to accept the fact that I was still stuck. Plus, it was a blast causing Julia to flip out while she was training Gaara. Good times. But 6 months ago, Julia left for her customary day, and never came back. I did my best to keep my hopes down. I mean, after so long I didn't really think that I'd ever get free again, but a week later I felt a tug at my chakra, and suddenly I was face down on a rug. 2 pairs of arms held me to my feet, and I looked at a smiling Julia and her husband, as they helped me to a couch so I could rest. A few days later, and an explanation of what happened, I decided I would watch over you girls, as well. I guess you could call a payment for services rendered. And that's the story. Naruto blushed, as the girls all smiled warmly at him, his old instincts taking over, as he rubbed the back of his neck. Gina narrowed her eyes, as she leaned forward, poking Naruto in the arm. What about Kurama? What's happened to him? Naruto nodded, as he looked towards the excited scientist. Well, I couldn't let him out when I was trying to hide from you 3. He would have been leaking so much power that it would have been impossible to hide. So, just before you let me out of the regenerator, I triggered the unsealing process. Give me some time, and that fox'll be nagging me to go kill my enemies again, just like the old days. Leaning back, Naruto watched, as the diggers began to talk with one another, happy to just watch the interactions he had missed for most of his life. The group decided to move towards the sitting room, the family, and Stripe sitting down, and avidly listening to Naruto, as he entertained them with stories from his life. Several hours later Gina and Brianna had passed out, and Brittany wasn't far behind the pair. Naruto smiled at Julia and Theo, and stood up, creating a pair of clones to take the girls back to their own beds. Stripe also rose, as he helped Brittany head back home, leaving Julia and Theo alone in their home with the blonde shinobi. So, now the real fun begins. The next morning. As the sun rose, a beam of light slowly made its way upwards until it hit Gina directly in the face, the bright light causing the girl to groan, as she rolled over. Moments later the blonde genius jumped to her feet, realizing that she had somehow gotten into her bed last night. Looking down she saw the same dress she had worn to dinner, and grinned. I'll bet Naruto put me to bed. It appears our big bad shinobi is a little shy, I better see what I can do to cure him of his condition. Yawning loudly, Gina let her dress fall to the ground as she made her way to her personal shower, deciding to get up early and see if she could catch Naruto to ask him some more questions. After taking care of her morning rituals, Gina softly padded towards the kitchen and stopped, surprised to see the blonde-haired man that she had been hoping to find at the stove. Gina leaned against the door frame and focused on the unaware man, her eyes looking over his sculpted body as he swiftly prepared breakfast. You know, I'm not going anywhere. You'll have plenty of time to watch me later, sit down and have something to eat. Gina blushed hotly as she timidly made her way into the kitchen, embarrassed at being caught so easily. Naruto grinned as he turned around, placed a plate before the yawning girl, and placed some food before her. Gina blinked for a moment as she looked at the food before her, her eyes misting up as she sniffled. Whoa, what's wrong? Gina looked up and grabbed the blonde in a hug, burying her face in his chest as she laughed. It's real food. No more instant stuff. You have been elected head cook now, for life. Naruto sniggered for a moment before putting his hands around Gina, the content woman nearly purring from the contact. Moments later a bleary-eyed Brianna stumbled into the kitchen, her mouth watering at the smells wafting through the house. Food Naruto grinned, as he released a pouting Gina, grabbed another plate, and placed the filled dish before Brianna, a dreamy smile on her face, as she inhaled the scents placed before her. Please tell me you'll do this every day, I promise I'll make it worth your while. Gina immediately spit out the juice she had been drinking at this comment, glaring at her smirking younger sister, as Brittany finally joined the group. Naruto kept a straight face, as he sat, seeing Brittany's eyes widen at the sight of real food having been cooked in their home. Oh wow, real food. Any left for me? Naruto looked back at the pan, cocked an eyebrow before turning back towards Brittany, and shaking his head sadly, the word cheetah visibly deflating, as she shuffled over to the kitchen cabinets, and grabbed her favorite cereal, and a bowl. A frowning Gina looked over at Naruto, his only response was to smirk and wink. Gina looked back at her sister, as she sat down at the table, grumbling about missing out on real food when her cereal and bowl were replaced with a steaming plate of food. Brittany blinked at the plate before her, then looked at the smirking shinobi across from her. Gotcha. Brianna yawned softly, as she softly walked towards the elevators, entering the waiting car, and pushing the button for sub-level 2. As the elevator opened its doors on the requested level, Brianna walked towards the doors of the digger's long-term storage, and tapped in security code to open the door. The sound of a grinder, and various other tools caused Brianna to grin fondly, as she stood in the doorway, watching the blonde-haired man before her continue with his work. Naruto held a tri-pointed kunai gently in his hands, inspecting the craftsmanship, as he tested the edge, pleased to see it was razor-sharp, and ready for use. A quick series of hand seals, and the weapon was sealed into a scroll, along with several hundred copies of the exact same weapon. As Naruto picked up the next kunai, his soft voice carried over the sound of the equipment he was using, grabbing the attention of the girl that was observing him. You're up later than you normally are, Brianna. Something I can do for you? Brianna chuckled, as she entered the room, coming up behind the shinobi, and wrapping her arms around Naruto, and leaning against his broad back, biting back a giddy laugh, as she felt his hard muscles pressing up against her. Several things to study, but for right now, I was worried about you. None of us have seen you over the last couple of days. Naruto looked over his shoulder, and blinked slowly, the kunai dropping from his hands, as he took in the beautiful girl before him. Brianna was wearing a very short and sheer silk nightgown, the garment barely closed enough to retain any sense of modesty, not that Naruto minded in the least. Brianna reached over, and took Naruto's hand, pulling him from the workbench, as she turned off the equipment, and pulled the shinobi to a couch she had managed to set up in the room. As Brianna gently pushed Naruto down onto the couch, she sat beside the blonde, pulling her legs up under her, as she rested her head against Naruto's chest, smiling, as she felt his heart beating rapidly. So, you gonna tell me what's wrong, or do I have to figure it out myself? Naruto sighed, as he rubbed his eyes tiredly, his other arm going around the young woman that was practically sitting in his lap. Oh, not much, just the fact that I pissed Gina off because I had to be all overprotective, and make sure that bastard Tabit would keep his hands off of her from now on. Naruto grinned, as he watched the organized chaos before him. The sight of Brittany carrying Stripe over her shoulder was particularly hilarious, especially as the prince did his best to continue looking dignified while in that position. Naruto chuckled as his focus returned to the girl in the center of it all, as Gina checked to make sure that everything was perfect. Okay, we got the food, games are set, towels, plenty of sunscreen. Gina trailed off as she looked over her shoulder, the warm hand of Naruto on her shoulder, causing the woman to blush as she looked down at her clipboard once more. Gina, I think we have everything that we need. Relax, this is supposed to be a fun day trip, not an expedition. Gina looked up at this, a taunting grin on her face, as she wagged her finger at Naruto. Oh, you say that now, but if I just happen to forget to bring any food, I know what you'd do. I've seen you giving Brianna that damned cute transformation shtick. I'm not falling for that. Naruto laughed loudly, as he was replaced with a cloud of smoke, an adorable fox cub gazing at Gina with its white eyes that seemed to quiver in sadness. Damn it, stop that. Gina backed away from the cute animal before her, but Naruto pressed his advantage, rubbing up against the young woman's leg, and yipping loudly. Ah, Brianna. Come grab Naruto before his cuteness makes me give in to whatever he wants. Brianna chuckled as she walked over, bent down, and scooped Naruto into her arms, petting the fix kit as he stretched out lazily. Ah, is Gina afraid of the big bad fox kit? I'll protect you, I have no problem keeping him all to myself. As Brianna walked back over to her walker, Gina looked at the kid in her sister's arms, and was about to go over there, and grab Naruto herself when a large muscled arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close to her on-off boyfriend, Ryan Tabit. Hey beautiful, miss me. Gina laughed weakly, as she gave Ryan a swift kiss on his cheek, the pair talking softly, as they walked over to the items that were being brought along. Neither noticed the steady gaze of the fox kid watching them, nor did they hear the low growling, as Naruto focused on the new arrival. Jumping out of Brianna's hands, Naruto softly padded across the bay, and stood before Ryan, looking at the arrogant stance and attitude he exuded. Growling softly, Naruto launched himself at the man's ankle, sinking his claws into his flesh, as he bit down on the man's ankle, hard. Gah! Why you little? Ryan kicked his leg outward, sending Naruto sailing through the air, a move that would normally cause an animal to land poorly and run away in fear. But, as Ryan watched, the fox kit that bit him landed lightly on his feet, scampering off after another growl in the man's direction. Gina, when did you get a pet fox? That thing just bit me. Gina looked up from her clipboard, seeing a recently reappearing Naruto smile over at her. She decided to play a small joke on her friend. Fox? What fox? Did something just bite you? We better get it looked at, you never know if it had rabies or something. Naruto laughed at Gina, the girl winking at the shinobi, as he turned to welcome Julia, Theo, and his apprentice Seance. Ryan waved his hands in front of himself, as he tried to keep his hurt foot out of sight. Nah, I'm fine, I wouldn't want to ruin your day by not being there at all. Gina smiled weakly, looking over at the blonde talking to her father, and nodding. Wow, thanks for thinking about how my day would go if you weren't around, Ryan. The martial artist completely missed the sarcasm, as he placed his arm around Gina once more, as everyone made their way towards the light gate. With Naruto and Theo. So, that's whom I take it. Naruto looked over, as Tabit put his arm around Gina once more, growling softly, as he channeled a small amount of his chakra through his eyes. The orbs flared red for a moment, as he nodded. Yeah, that's the cheating bastard in the flesh. After I finish with him, he better stay away if he knows what's good for him. Theo nodded his head in agreement, as both men made their way towards the gate, Naruto growling once more, as he thought about all he had learned regarding Ryan Tabit over the last few weeks. Flashback. Another day of observation, another day of boredom. Sometimes I wish these three would go and do something dangerous so I could stop hiding. Naruto yawned silently, as he looked at the current recipient of his attention, Akoi Gina grinning, as she talked with her latest boyfriend on the vidphone. Ryan, I really need your help. I found an ancient temple, and I need extra hands with me to excavate it. If you come, I'll make it worth your while. Naruto raised his eyebrows slightly, the innuendo causing him to smile and shake his head as he listened to Ryan's response. I'm sorry babe, I've got an important assignment that needs to be completed ASAP. I'll be out of town and unreachable for a couple of weeks. If I could put it off I would, but this is really important. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he watched Ryan's body language, a necessary skill as a shinobi. All of Naruto's instincts were screaming to the blonde, he's lying. Now, the real question is what is he lying about? Gina sighed in disappointment before continuing on. Aw, that sucks. Wait, will you still be able to make the beach trip we're planning? I want you to meet my parents along with the rest of my friends and family. Ryan chuckled as he nodded quickly, a confident smirk appearing as he leaned back in his chair. Of course I'll be there, I can't wait to meet them. Whoops, sorry to cut this short, but I gotta get going. Catch you later babe. When the call ended, a visibly saddened Gina made her way out of the communications room, her sadness an obvious reaction at not getting to see the martial artist. As the door closed behind her, Gina never saw the shadowy being dropped from the rafters of the communications room. Naruto walked towards the computer and sat down, thankful for the huge number of books he had been provided with by Theo and Julia to help him get used to the technology that was now everywhere in the world. Pulling up the comm system, Naruto managed to slip in using an account Theo had forged for him, accessing the contacts database, and pulling up information about one Ryan Tabit. As the man's address appeared on the screen, Naruto grinned as he created a clone, the chakra construct looking over the information before the pair and rubbing his chin. He's not too far from here, should only take about half a day of travel. Don't worry boss, I'll keep an eye on this punk, something ain't right here. As the clone disappeared into the darkness, Naruto swiftly shut off the computer, leaving the room just as he had found it, empty and silent. Then flashback. When Naruto had awoken in the regenerator, he had found the memories of the clone he sent after Tabit had arrived, an arrival that caused the blonde to growl in anger when he reviewed them. Little bastard decided getting some tail on the side was more important than helping the girl he claims is his girlfriend. I'm no prude, but damn man, the little prick should show some loyalty. Especially for a girl like Gina. Unbidden memories played for Naruto, a wide grin forming, as he remembered another nickname he had been given in his time, as a shinobi of Konoha. The one shinobi you never want to cross. And now, he had found his next target. Well, sorry about your luck asshole, but it's your own damn fault. I haven't had a chance to hand out someone's just desserts in years, and you get to be the unlucky one that gets the full brunt of that. No one does that to one of my friends, especially someone that got me out of the hellish existence I put myself into. Naruto looked up, noticing that everyone had gone through the light gate except a smirking Gina, the blonde looking at the distracted shinobi, as she tapped a few controls on the device. Naruto walked forward, a curious look on his face, as he inspected the device from multiple angles. Gina wrapped her arms around Naruto's left arm, causing the blonde to look at her in surprise. Come on, it's okay, it's just a teleportation device, it's perfectly safe. Naruto chuckled, as he rubbed the back of his neck. The pair walked towards the device, and stopped right in front of it. Oh, I know it's safe, you wouldn't let us use it unless it was. I was wondering how it works exactly. I'm no stranger to teleportation, we have several techniques based on it alone, since its advantage in battle is astronomical. The problem was, said techniques require a particular focus or insane amounts of power and concentration. Gina giggled, as she squeezed tightly on the appendage trapped in her grasp, causing Naruto flash a smile at the blonde. As the pair walked through the gate, Naruto grinning, as he recognized the familiar feeling of passing through time and space, his senses adjusting quickly to the change in location, as his eyes landed on the sights before him. The pristine beach stretched out before the group, white sand stretching out like a ribbon, until it was blocked by the curve of the island that Gina had found. Naruto looked around, and grinned when he saw the others, a scowling Brianna walking forward, as she claimed Naruto's other arm. The chuckling Naruto listened to the sisters fire harmless barbs back and forth, each trying to claim that Naruto wanted to hang out with them today, while the shinobi's real focus was directed at the scowling features of Ryan Tabit. I think the asshole recognizes that Gina isn't as interested in him anymore. Good, this makes things easier for me. Naruto nodded over at Theo, the archmage flashing him a quick grin, as he and his wife decided to settle down near the light gate, while Brittany and Stripe made their way towards the east cove, the crown prince bouncing on her girlfriend's shoulder, as he was treated like luggage. This left Gina, Brianna, Jen Ryan, and Seance to make their way towards the northern beach. After several steps, Gina turned around and noticed that Naruto was looking around the island with an almost homesick look. Naruto, get the fine ass over here, right now. Ryan looked at Gina irritably, as Naruto walked forward, resting his arm around Gina's shoulders, as the group headed towards their final destination, a mocking smirk on the shinobi's face, as he winked at Ryan. Gina giggled, as she wrapped her free arm around Naruto's waist, the group walking for several minutes, until Gina had decided they had reached the perfect spot. Walking out from under Naruto's arm, Gina placed the food on the ground. Brianna used her mech to set up their camp, the various towels and umbrellas landing with pinpoint precision, while a volleyball net appeared further down the beach. Gina placed her hands on her hips, grinning, as she addressed the group. Okay guys, Jen and I will get lunch started, the rest of you should break in that volleyball net. Jen immediately ran towards Gina, pulling the girl towards the food, as Naruto smiled at the remaining young adults. So, I think I'll take Seance on my team, I think we'll work well together. As Brianna nodded happily, a look of satisfaction appeared on Ryan's face before he turned to walk over to his side of the net. Walking towards his teammate, Naruto motioned for Seance to come over before the game started. When the young man was close enough, Naruto put his arm around Seance's shoulders, and quietly let him in on the fact that there was going to be some trouble. Hey, things are going to get a little heated today, so when the shit hits the fan just sit back and enjoy the show, okay? Seance looked at Naruto with a confused expression, but nodded slowly. As Seance was walking back to his side of their playing field, Naruto grinned when Brianna winked saucily at him, then served the bowl. Well, it's showtime. Gina hummed happily, as she and Jen worked on preparing lunch for the hungry group. She couldn't stop herself from looking over, as Naruto ran back and forth, his natural agility serving him well, as he kept the ball in play, when it should have been impossible to save it multiple times. The quiet snicker beside her drew her attention back to Jen, and she frowned at the current female Rakshasa. Jen raised her hands in her defense, and giggled at Gina's defensive response. Nothing, it just looks like you're a little distracted. That's all. Gina glared at Jen, as she turned back to the subs she was putting together, and mumbled something about meddlesome shapeshifters, as she finished up her job. Of course I'm distracted. Naruto's over there in a pair of shorts, and showing off what his body can do. No, focus Gina. You have to tell Ryan that you're not interested anymore, that you've found someone else. It's the right thing to do. Gina nodded resolutely while Jen smiled once more, her psionic talents picking up her thoughts, as she broadcasted them loudly. Just as Gina was about to announce that lunch was ready, she saw Naruto leap into the air, rear back his arm, and savagely spike the ball right towards Ryan. Problem was, it looked like he hadn't held back, as the careening ball was going to cave Ryan's nose in if it hit. Ryan had managed to dodge the ball, but only partially, as the spiraling shot hit his cheek and sent the man spinning to the ground, a large bruise rapidly forming from the strike. Gina watched, as Ryan shook his head to try and regain his bearings. Once he did, he turned his angry gaze on Naruto, as he stalked towards him. Oh shit. Shit. What are those two doing? After a few heated words that were exchanged between the two men, Gina nearly fainted when she saw Ryan take a swing at Naruto, knowing that was a very bad idea. Ryan Talbot was a powerful martial artist, an unrepentant flirt, and a womanizer of the highest order. His cocky attitude helped him feel like he was always in charge of any situation, and that he'd always come out on top, no matter the obstacle. But, as soon as he saw the volleyball rocketing towards his face, he could only think of one word. Dodge. Dodge. Pulling his head sharply to his right, Ryan managed to save his nose from the crushing blow, but was still sent crashing to the ground when the ball hit his cheek, spinning the man around before he crashed heavily into the ground. Groaning loudly, Ryan slowly stood and rounded on the person that hit the ball, more than willing to give him a piece of his mind, as well as several large helpings of physical persuasion. Besides, the little bastard is getting too close to my Gina. I think it's time to teach him the way things are going to be around here. Naruto grinned, as Ryan stalked towards him, the young cocky man assured in the fact that he could take the slightly smaller Naruto. Ryan got into his face, and since he was a little taller he looked down at Naruto, jabbed his finger into his chest, and yelled at him. You little shit. You did that on purpose. Naruto grinned a little, as he felt Julia run towards the East Cove where Brittany and Stripe were at, while Theo was slowly making his way towards Naruto and the others. Guess all those years of practicing how to sense chakra without Senimoto have finally paid off. Naruto looked at the fuming young man in front of him and smiled disarmingly. Yeah, I did. I just wanted us to have a private conversation without it seeming too conspicuous. I know what you were doing a week and a half ago, remember? Well, you were off with some other girl you have on the side. You could have been helping Gina and the girls on that dig went on. The dig that almost got them killed. Oh, that's right, you didn't know that. It must have slipped your mind to ask how that went. I was there, and I saved them all from being killed. If I hadn't been there, the next time you would have seen Gina was in a coffin. Ryan's face paled as he backed up a step, as the blonde before him continued his verbal assault on the man. But a moment later his arrogance was back to full power, as he stepped closer to Naruto, his face mere inches from the blonde, as he narrowed his gaze at the man before him. You had better forget what you think you saw, and keep it to yourself, if you know what's good for you. I don't want to have to teach you your place here. I'll let you hang around my girl, but keep your hands to yourself. Naruto sighed, shaking his head sadly, as he looked at the young man in front of him with a bored expression. Oh yes, I am so scared of you. No, please help, please save me someone right, like that would ever happen. I think it's time for you to leave Gina alone. Be her friend, that'd be great since everyone could always use more friends. But I really think you better stop trying to get in her pants, cause I know that's all you really want is a quick lay, and then on to the next one. I've seen you type 100 times, and you never change. So, here's your last warning. Back off, or you'll regret it. Naruto saw the fist well before it even came close to hitting him, giving the highly trained shinobi more than enough time to dodge and counter the blow, but Naruto decided that it would be better to show Ryan just how outclassed he was at the moment. The left cross he took to the chin jerked his head to the left slightly, his amused gaze never leaving Ryan, as he saw when the young man finally realized he was in over his head. Oh shit, I think this was a big mistake. Truer words were never spoken, but before he could do anything, Ryan's world exploded into blinding white light, and pain, and lots of pain. Theo watched from the edge of the beach, as Naruto was decked in the face, his head barely moving, as the archmage shook his head. Oh, bad move son, he's gonna yep, there it is. Theo nearly cringed, as he watched Naruto's fist lash out, the straight punch to Ryan's stomach, sending the young man's body catapulting through the air down the beach. After several seconds of flying through the air, Ryan's body fell to the sand, and finally rolled to a stop, a good 30 feet away from where he had started the disagreement with Naruto. Theo realized he better step in soon before the visibly angry shinobi did something rash. After all, he didn't question Naruto's skill or restraint, but he wanted to make sure that Ryan didn't do something that could cause the angry man to overreact. As Naruto stalked towards his opponent, Theo began creating the weave both he and Naruto had been discussing in preparation of the trip, deciding that a message from both Gina's protector and her father would drive the importance of listening to their words home. Naruto nearly turned and attacked Theo as he appeared beside him, but calmed himself as he remembered the plan the pair had hashed out. Reining in his natural urge to attack, Naruto allowed Theo to place a hand on Naruto's shoulder, and a small rush of energy passed over his body. Naruto nearly burst out laughing at the terrified expression on Ryan's face, knowing what the young man was now faced with. Flashback. So, no one outside of about 3 feet will see anything, but the three of us, right? Theo nodded, as he pulled several tomes from a bookcase, leafing through the pages, as he continued researching how to best approach the situation. Correct, we will also be unaffected, but the Tablet boy will see something straight from his worst nightmares brought to life. After all, no one plays around with my girls. Then flashback. Ryan's eyes widened in fear, as he looked at the pair before him, the terror he felt preventing him from moving an inch. A tall dark man loomed over the fallen youth, his burning skull and glowing green eyes boring into Ryan's soul with a hellish gaze, but that wasn't the worst part. Beside the burning being a snarling fox with 9 tails growled lowly, drool dripping from its jaws as the beast snapped at Ryan's feet, causing him to pull back in fear. Well, I see that you boys are getting to know each other. I'd appreciate it if you stopped trying to ruin the day for everyone. I expect there will be no more incidents like this. And that you'll take into consideration the message Naruto delivered. Ryan trembled at the eerie voice that was issued from the burning being, his head rapidly nodding. Feeling the young man was sufficiently scared, Theo dropped his hand from Naruto's shoulder, breaking the spell. Before anyone else could say a word, Gina stormed up, grabbed Naruto's hand, and dragged him off to the tree line, ignoring the man's questions as they walked out of sight. Theo sighed as he placed his hands back in his pockets and calmly walked towards the remaining members of Gina's group. Brianna walked up to her dad, looking at the still petrified form of Ryan on the beach. "Dad, what did you do to him?" Theo chuckled as he gave his daughter a hug and kiss on the cheek, his grin never leaving his face as he walked back towards the light gate, his parting words causing Brianna to look at him in confusion. "Oh, nothing, just passing a message along is all." Naruto smiled at the intense energy that was almost flying off of the girl that was pulling him off of the beach, and sighed internally. Well, he comes to the right act, not that I wasn't prepared for it. When the two were finally alone, Gina released Naruto's hand and rounded on the shinobi, anger reflected in her blue eyes. "Why did you start that fight? We both know you can take Ryan with your arms and legs tied behind your back, but you provoked him into taking a swing at you. Please, just tell me, why did you do it?" Naruto sighed loudly, crossing his arms over his chest, as he started to explain his reasons for the fight. "Before the expedition, when you asked Ryan to come along to help out, I was listening in on your conversation. It was part of my duties to keep up to date on where you were all going to be. But when I was listening to the conversation you had with Ryan that day, I had a feeling something was up, so I sent a clone after him to see what kind of an important assignment would keep him away from you. Turns out he's a no-good asshole that was trying to take advantage of you. He was with A." Gina walked forward and slapped him hard, stopping Naruto in the middle of his explanation. "Stop right there. I know Ryan was no good for me. I was going to use today to tell him I wasn't interested. I wanted to make sure you were around just in case he took the news poorly. Did you have such little faith in me? I mean, I have been throwing myself at you for the last couple of weeks, so has Brianna. Do you really think I would go out with someone else while I was doing that? Just leave me alone for now. I need some time to myself." Gina crossed her arms under her chest and turned away from Naruto, the shinobi reaching out at the angry woman, but after a moment he thought better of it, retracting his hand and turning back towards the light gate. A solemn-looking Theo nodded his thanks at the blonde as he passed through the portal, landing back in the hangar bay of the digger's home. Walking towards his room, Naruto changed quickly and left the house, leaping across the rooftops as he made his way towards the city, looking for a tall tower where he could perch himself and think about what had happened. Hours passed, and Naruto watched the sunset and the city light up as people continued on with their lives, the answers that Naruto had been seeking no closer than they had been several hours ago. Sighing dejectedly, Naruto made his way back towards his current home, noticing that all the lights were off except for his own. Looking in through the window, Naruto saw a still angry Gina sitting on his bed, the young woman constantly throwing looks at the closed door before her. Not wanting to start another argument, Naruto silently entered the home, making his way towards the elevator. Once inside, Naruto descended to sub-level 2, opened his workshop, and fell down on the couch. Moments later Naruto passed out, the events of the day, assuring that the young man slept fitfully. "So that's the whole story, huh? Well, I can't blame you for how you reacted. I'd be pissed at him if I knew the truth as well. But you know, Gina was only angry with you for about an hour, tops. We all looked for you on the island, and when we couldn't find you she was angrier with herself for how she had treated you. All day today she's been mopey and miserable. She's barely left her room thinking that you've left for good. Heck, I think she forgot you even had a workshop down here. I've never seen her so depressed. Brianna ran her fingers gently along Naruto's abs, as she looked over at the man she was currently snuggled up against, waiting for his reaction to her words. Naruto put an arm around Brianna's shoulder and squeezed lightly as he sighed. I'm being an idiot again, aren't I? Brianna giggled at the young man's question and nodded her head. Yep, you are. But it's okay, I mean you're still getting used to having people around you again. Go, talk to her, she wants to set things right. Naruto nodded slowly, but before he left he wrapped Brianna in his arms, kissing the top of her head. Thanks. Naruto rose slowly, stretched out his arms, and walked towards the doorway, turning back towards a blushing Brianna before exiting his workshop. Brianna fell back on the couch, and waited until she heard the elevator rising before she squealed loudly, wrapping her arms around herself, as she replayed what had just happened in her head. Yes. Definite progress. The young woman sat there, basking in the moment before she rose quickly, making her way through the house to see what would happen next. A few days after Naruto had gotten out of the regenerator, the shinobi had placed a seal on each of the girls to help keep track of them. It didn't have a very long range, but it did let him know if they were nearby and in trouble. Activating Gina's seal, Naruto began to walk through the house, as he followed the signal, smiling, as he arrived at the room Gina was currently in. I should have known. Opening the door to the game room, Naruto's ears were greeted by the blaring music and sound effects from the expensive sound system that Gina had installed. Naruto watched as Gina threw her whole being into the game she was playing, some kind of head-to-head fighting game. Just as the match ended, Gina rose to her feet, raising her right fist in victory. Yasha. My kung fu is the best. Naruto couldn't take it anymore, he burst out laughing, causing Gina to scream in shock as she fell to the ground. Coming round the couch, Naruto reached out with his hand, pulling the frightened girl to her feet, then held his arms up to fend off the slaps she was aiming at him. You jerk. You scared the crap out of me. The continuous hitting caused Naruto to keep laughing, and of course this eventually caused Gina to join in. Soon they were leaning against each other, and trying to catch their breath between fits of giggles. Naruto pulled the giggling girl down on the couch beside him, and gave her a sidelong glance. Feeling better? Gina nodded, and laid her head on Naruto's shoulder. After a few minutes of sitting like this she snaked her arms around his waist, and took a deep breath. I'm sorry, I overreacted. I know you did those things to protect me, but all I saw was you keeping things from me. That, and the fact that you didn't trust me to handle the whole Ryan situation, all of it made me react poorly. I shouldn't have slapped you like that. Naruto closed his eyes, and chuckled softly. Well, sometimes you need a good hit or two to get the point across with me. I may be a master tactician and fighter, but with relationships, family, and friends I can be a real amateur. It's what happens when you forget how to act around people. I'll make sure you know what's going on from now on, okay? Gina nodded, and hugged Naruto tighter. After looking up at the young man beside her, Gina looked back at the TV, and grinned devilishly. So, wanna play a game? Naruto let out a bark of laughter, as he picked up a controller. Seriously? You wipe the floor with me. Besides, what are you playing? Gina grinned, as she punched Naruto in the shoulder softly. Oh come on, you can't be that bad, it'll be fun. And to answer your question, Street Fighter 2. Naruto grinned, as he made a discreet hand sign, and shrugged his shoulders. Well alright, let's see how I use this guy Ryu. Meanwhile, outside of the room. Brianna grinned, as she pushed off the wall she was leaning against, her enhanced hearing allowing her to eavesdrop without worrying that her sister and Naruto would realize that she was there. Well, I did my good deed of the day I guess. Wait, what's that sound? Brianna jumped back in shock, as Naruto suddenly dropped out of a panel in the ceiling, the man grinning, as hung from the ceiling with one hand, while he gave Brianna a wave. Naruto. I thought you were in the game room. Naruto grinned, as he clung to the ceiling, closed the panel he had opened, and nodded. Yep, he is. I'm a clone. I need to find a computer to do some research. Actually, maybe you can help me. Do you know how to do any of the special moves for Ryu in Street Fighter 2? Brianna looked at Naruto strangely for a moment, then she looked back at the room he was supposed to be in. A sudden realization caused Brianna to smirk evilly, as the clone dropped to the ground, the half-word Cheetah pulling the clone towards her, as the pair headed to the nearest computer system. Oh, I think we can definitely find all the information you need. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something. Gina mentioned something about you spying on us for the last several months. Naruto clone chuckled nervously, as he was led away, knowing that his creator was going to have a fun time explaining this to all three girls later. Moments after the pair had left the hallway, a second clone came down the elevator carrying a very important package. Placing it against the wall just outside of the game room, the clone smirked as he shook his head in amusement, popping himself now that his mission was complete. 20 minutes later. You have to be cheating, ninja boy. I know you are. You haven't even touched a video game since you've been here, and now you're controlling Ryu, as if you've had years of practice. Naruto grinned, as he watched his victory replay again, and turned to the irate woman. Ha, well I think someone is losing her touch, maybe you're out of practice, science girl. Gina glared at the young shinobi, and leaped forward, tackling the surprised shinobi, and straddling him on the floor, her hands pressed against his chest, as she glared at the trapped shinobi. Naruto looked at Gina in wide-eyed shock, as she gave him a mock glare, leaned forward, and rested her large against Naruto's chest, her gaze changing from angry to coy in a heartbeat. What did you just call me? Naruto swallowed loudly, sweat appearing on his forehead, as Gina gently traced circles over his chest, her smirk growing every second that the shinobi failed to respond. Finally, Naruto opened his mouth to respond, but a moment later Gina no longer felt the hard buff body she had been resting against, now it felt like. Naruto stood in front of the elevator, whistling merrily, as he waited for the car to arrive. A loud ding had the blonde quickly entering the car when a loud bang caused Naruto to look up, and grin evilly. Naruto, get back here, and take IT like a man. Naruto looked towards the game room, watching, as Gina exited the room while carrying the huge stuffed bear she normally kept in her closet. Gina ran towards the elevator, but it was too late, as the doors closed before her eyes, and rose to the main level of the house. The irate woman was left to stew silently, as she thought back at what had happened. He started off as complete crap, and after a few games he's busting out combos, and super moves. Oh, he cheated so much. As Gina slowly calmed down, a pair of arms gently wrapped around the young woman, catching her off guard, as she tensed up at the close contact. As the arms held her gently, Gina closed her eyes, as the familiar scent of Naruto enveloped the young woman, and caused her to purr softly from the warmth that she felt being this close to him. Thanks, that was the most fun I've had in a while. Kissing the top of Gina's head, Naruto made his way towards the elevator, and rode it up to the main floor. Gina stood completely still, her brain overloaded at what had just happened. Moments later a goofy grin appeared on Gina's face, as she made her way towards her room, her soft bed welcoming her, as she quickly fell asleep. Brittany slung her arm around Naruto's shoulders, and grinned at him cheekily. So Naruto, are you having fun on your second dig with us? There should be an awesome payday from this place. Gina looked over at her sister with a deadpan expression, as she added her 2 cents to Brittany's thoughts. That's true, it should be an awesome payday, just like you said if everyone else hadn't discovered the place at the same time. Naruto grinned, as he pulled down the pair of sunglasses he wore, and smiled evilly, as his gaze fell on his target, Ryan Tabit. After the last time the two men had met, Ryan had not set foot anywhere near the digger's property, this simple act letting Naruto know that the young man had gotten the message that the shinobi had delivered to him. Naruto walked forward, and slapped Ryan on the back forcefully, scaring the shit out of the young man, as he tried to back away from the blonde. Ryan, how nice to see you again, and so soon. So, did you have a chance to think about what I told you before? Ryan looked towards Gina fearfully, and sighed, as she looked away immediately, turning her nose up at the frightened young man. Sighing, the young treasure hunter nodded his head, causing Naruto to grin in triumph. Alright, you win, I'll still work with her, and I guess we can be friends, that is if she'll even talk to me. Naruto grinned, and leaned in closely to hammer out some of the fine details, not wanting to leave anything to chance or interpretation. Good, very good. So, no more trying to get in her pants, no more trying to grope her, nothing, got it. And if you're a good boy, I may help you with your fighting style. You're really just using a mishmash of good moves, and it's kinda embarrassing. You really should be able to excel in one or more styles, and that's where I can help. Ryan's eyes widened, surprised at the offer, as he nodded slowly. Naruto slapped his back again, nearly sending Ryan crashing into the floor before walking back over to the girls. Just as he got within range, Cheetah grabbed his arm, and pulled the shinobi aside. What gives? First you scared the crap out of him, then you're all buddy-buddy with the guy. Naruto grinned evilly, as he let loose an evil-sounding laugh, an action that had Brittany studying the blonde before her intently. Just what are you planning in that diabolical mind of you, Naruto? Well, I did say training, but I didn't say it would be the training from hell. He'll suffer more than he ever has, and I can disguise it all, as trying to make him a better martial artist. Cheetah looked at our young shinobi, eyes wide, and an excited smile on her face. Please, please help me. Every session, please, please, please. Naruto gave Brittany a thumbs up, and was suddenly holding over 300 pounds of ecstatic Horde Cheetah in his arms. Brittany then joined in with her own maniacal cackle, while Ryan watched the entire exchange, wondering if accepting the possible training sessions had been a mistake. Naruto let Cheetah go, and looked at the rest of Gina's gathered rivals. Let's see, a pair of twins, getting some strange vibes off of them, must be the Montara twins Gina warned me about. And what the heck is a guy dressed up like a businessman doing here? World's full of weirdos, I'll just roll with it. I'm guessing the girl with the wings, and the black girl beside her are Penny, and Charlotte, which leaves the last group of Baldy, the midget, and the one-up. The last 3 people that Naruto looked at seemed to be the most annoyed with the holdup, as the World Archaeological Foundation representative was trying to figure out who had the rights to this new site. As they all waited, Naruto began to mold some chakra to see if anyone so much as even twitched. The one-up and the twins both looked at Naruto sharply, causing the blonde to grin widely. Well, it seems they're not all useless after all. Only a few people in the entire world should be able to feel the energies that form chakra in this day and age. This trip may actually be somewhat interesting. Galford looked at the man in front of him and couldn't help but shiver slightly, his senses telling him that this man was not to be trifled with. Actually, his senses were screaming to him to act immediately. The message they were providing Galford went something like this. Run, you fool. Why aren't you running? Damn it, we are going to die, Baka. Crouching down at his master's height, Galford softly cleared his throat to grab the attention of his employer, his honor demanding that he inform his master of the potential danger before them. Lord Talon, we must be wary of the man with the Digger's sisters. He is very dangerous. Star. Writer's note. Yeah, no shit Sherlock, you think? Beware. Lord Talon glanced at the man that Galford had just pointed out, his smirk widening, as he observed the man before him. HMPH, he doesn't seem that dangerous to me. He looks weaker than Tabit, and I know that you would wipe the floor with that blowhard. Galford nodded slowly at what his employer said, but continued on. Regardless of what you may see, he is much more than that. I do not know if I would be able to defeat him if he tried to attack us. Talon's interest was piqued as he looked at the young man again. Really? Maybe a genetic sample of the dumb muscle wouldn't be a bad idea. If we have the opportunity, we'll collect one. Just as Talon finished speaking, the dumb muscle sharply turned his head and pierced the young genius with his shade-covered gaze. Talon swallowed loudly, his brow dotted with sweat, as he felt the heavy gaze of the man before him. Maybe I spoke too soon. Finally, the question of who would be able to claim the site was resolved, though not to everyone's satisfaction. As all the relevant parties had registered the site at the same time, they would all have to share the discovery. The site was divided up into equal sections. Each team was randomly assigned a sector that they would be able to excavate. Naruto grinned as each group began to argue, but Miss Hager was unmoved by anything they said, and stuck by her decision to carve up the site equally among the explorers. After the capital had been divided, and the Diggers team arrived at their site, Gina sent Brittany to check in with Jen and Seance before they arrived in her car with the rest of the team's gear. Naruto smiled as he held Gina in his arms, the young shinobi using his powerful muscles to leap across the pitfalls and treacherous spots of the northern sector that Gina had been assigned. The young genius grumbled a bit every time Naruto set her down, but the potential discoveries in front of her just waiting to be cracked helped her get over her annoyance, somewhat. Naruto watched Gina reach into an alcove in the wall, pulling out several artifacts that had piqued the young genius's curiosity, so for now the pair were staying put. Naruto crossed his arms over his chest, as he thought about the situation involving him, Gina, and Brianna. Initially, he had thought that the girls were just normally this touchy-feely with people they knew, but after several weeks the dense blonde realized that things were starting to escalate between the three, instead of simmering down. He could tell that both girls were interested in him. He wasn't quite that dense anymore, but that was where the problem lay. Both girls were appealing for different reasons, Gina and her devotion and single-minded drive to anything that she wanted, and Brianna's desire to make her own mark on the world, and were desires that he could relate to. Not to mention Gina's obsession with anime and video games were growing on him, and there was no need to even mention how much he loved blowing things up with Brianna. Each had their own needs, hobbies, and likes and dislikes, but it seems they both wanted the same thing this time. Him. Naruto knew if he chose one over the other, the girl that was left out would be devastated. For once in his life, Naruto had no idea how to get out of this without someone getting hurt. In the end, I may just have to disappoint them both. They'd end up hating me most likely, but at least not Icho. Just as Naruto was about to finish his thought, Gina looked back at Naruto and smiled at him cutely, the excited archaeologist turning back to the items laid out before her as she smiled happily. Naruto's resolve to step back from both girls crumbled immediately, a sigh of resignation passing his lips. Ah hell, I am so screwed. As Gina continued to tap away at her computer, Naruto cocked his head to the side as he stretched his senses out over the cavern. From the moment that she had left, Naruto had been keeping a figurative eye on Brittany as she made her way towards the entrance where the main communication hub was located. As the Warchita's chakra reached the main hub, a pair of new signatures appeared, causing Naruto to frown when he recognized one of the signals. Oh no, you little wannabe, not today. One hand sign later, a clone appeared behind Gina, surprising the young woman out of her new euphoric daze as she tried to solve the mystery before her. Gina, I think there's something going on with cheats. This guy'll keep you safe for now. I'll be back as soon as I can. Leaping towards the exit, Naruto grinned as he thought, time to show everyone what a real ninja is. Cheetah growled as she kept dodging the blows from Zelda and Galford, each doing their best to put her down permanently. Damn it. What I wouldn't give for a little help here. Moments after Cheetah finished that though, she felt a pair of arms encircle her and pull her away from the fight. Looking up, she saw the smirking face of Naruto right above her. Hey cheats, having fun? As he stood and let her go, Cheetah looked back at Pee-wee's goons and cracked her knuckles, a large grin splitting her face, now that she had some backup. Oh, I will be now. Baldy is all yours. Galford is mine. But before anyone could move, Naruto was on his knees in front of Cheetah, holding her hands in his own, and doing something she never thought she would ever see him do. Please. Please kick this one-up ninja's ass. I'll do anything for you, anything. Cheetah was completely shocked at what she was seeing before her, never suspecting in a million years that she would get to see the powerful Naruto begging her for something. Suddenly a look of understanding crossed the word Cheetah's face, as she replayed what Naruto had said, the young woman realizing that Naruto took his training and his abilities seriously, not wanting anyone looking down at his skills or mocking what a real shinobi should be. A devious smirk crossed Brittany's face, as she pulled Naruto to his feet. Well, what can you offer me? After all, you're the one butting into my fight. I find it only fair that I get something out of it, if you're taking the best fighter to yourself. Naruto put up one hand, reached into his jacket with the other, and pulled out a small card. You can have the item listed on this card. Zelda growled loudly, as her opponents ignored her. The indignation of being passed over was more than the woman could take, as she pointed at the arguing pair. Hey. Stop jabbering, and... Zelda trailed off, as both Naruto and Cheetah gave her a death glare, their gazes promising swift death if the woman spoke again. Taking a step back, Zelda looked at Galford, but the ninja just held his hands up and shook his head in resignation, an action that caused a trickle of fear to grow in Zelda's stomach. This can't good. Cheetah looked at the card in confusion, but after she read the few lines that were there, the word Cheetah's eyes widened in joy as she grabbed Naruto in a hug, squeezing the man joyously and squealing happily. Yes. I'll take it. He's all yours. Naruto took back the card and grinned. Deal, now where were we? Naruto and Cheetah both pivoted and launched themselves towards Zelda and Galford, the speed they were moving at causing both goons to try and backpedal in shock, but it was too late. Naruto grinned as he began to educate Galford, dancing back and forth between each of his strikes, and watching the genetically engineered ninja get even more frustrated as he failed to land a single blow. Finally Galford leaped back, brought his hands to his side, and began gathering his energy there. Naruto smirked at the attempt, and when Galford yelled, Hadouken! Naruto disappeared from his sight. Galford froze when he felt a presence appear behind him, and heard, a ninja doesn't let the opponents sneak up on them from behind, baka. Kanahagakure hide into Jutsu Gai. Senengarashi. Pee-wee looked back at the tunnel his minions had used to intercept Brittany Diggers, in an attempt to keep her busy. A girlish scream echoing down the tunnel caused Pee-wee to sigh. Sounds like Zelda was defeated again. Naruto smirked as the chakra-enhanced ass pokes and Galford rocketing across the chamber, directly into the far wall. Cheetah and Zelda had watched the whole thing happen, and both could only respond in one way. Both girls started to laugh their heads off, as Galford slowly rose from the ground, as quickly as his wounded PRIDENS would let him. As both girls gained control of themselves, Cheetah jabbed Zelda in the face, stunning her, and unloaded a multi-hit combo that sent her skidding towards her mortified partner. You see how much of a threat I think you are, one-up. That was the move that my teacher used on me after I was a ninja under his command for only a day. You're that much of a joke to me. Galford growled in anger as he pulled a ball from his belt, throwing it to the floor. Thick smoke was released from the bomb, causing Naruto to slide in front of Cheetah, just in case this was cover for a sneak attack. But after several moments Naruto relaxed, as he felt the two enemies leave, their chakra rapidly heading south. Spinning around, Naruto grinned, as he held his fist up in front of himself, a move that confused Brittany for a moment. Several seconds passed when the word Cheetah grinned widely, as she gently bumped fists with the shinobi, a loud whoop from the shinobi, causing the girl to giggle loudly. Oh yeah, that was awesome. Thanks for coming to give me a hand. And don't you dare think about backing out on what you said you'd deliver since the fight was so short. Naruto rubbed his finger under his nose, and grinned. No worries, totally worth it to show that guy his place. You'll get the item in a few days. But I better get back to Gina, just in case. You never know what trouble she may have gotten into. Meanwhile, Gina wasn't exactly in trouble, more like she was embarrassing herself. The Naruto clone had walked ahead of Gina a little bit, while she was inputting some more of her findings into her computer, giving the beautiful young woman a good look at the clone's ass, as she began to multitask. It may not actually be him, but they are completely identical. Wish I had a quarter. The quiet PSST Gina, behind the distracted girl, caused her to fall back on her basic survival method whenever Penny was around. Give Penny a wedgie before her rival could do the same to her. Gina, using her epic wedgie skill, slipped her arm around her back and snagged the underwear of the person that had snuck up on her, a high-pitched squeal, informing her of her success. Mission accomplished. Gina looked over her shoulder with a smirk that quickly turned into complete and utter mortification. Penny hadn't been sneaking up on her, it was. Now you see, Charlotte, that's why I sent Ryan ahead to talk to Gina. Gina glared at her rival and her harpy friend, growling at the sassy grin she got in return. The Naruto clone chuckled as he turned around and watched the scene in front of him. Standing beside Gina, he put his arm around her shoulders as Gina's cheeks flushed brightly. Ryan was trying to get his underwear back in his pants, and once this was done he quickly decided to make an exit, thinking that it'd be less embarrassing than his current situation. Gina, you never told me you like to wedgie people out. Gina elbowed the clone in the stomach. Fortunately it wasn't hard enough to pop him, but he did feel it. Turning back to her rival, she growled out, "Why are you here, Penny?" Penny sighed and crossed her arms as she looked at Gina. "Erwin's got me concerned. I mean, he's the kind of guy to off people rather than share. If he could get away with it, he'd kill us all and leave us here to rot. I say we team up to make sure nothing like that happens." Jin adopted an unconcerned look and jerked her thumb at Naruto. "I don't need to team up with anyone, this guy is all I need anymore. Him and Brett together are pretty much unstoppable." Penny met at the young man beside a rival and got a good look at him. I don't know what's so special about him, sure he's cute, but other than that he looks so normal." Gina snorted and began to snigger, resting her head against the clone's chest as she slowly regained control of herself. "Ha, normal right. Don't worry, we can take care of Pee-wee, we can use the card to get to his site and make sure he's." Gina frowned as an alert on her computer had her tapping several keys rapidly until finally she screamed in rage. "My car." Ines smirked as he surveyed his work. Jen and Seance had been taken out the moment they had exited the car, leaving it ready to be occupied by Pee-wee and his crew. Just as the rest of the group arrived, Ines cocked his head to the side and gestured at Galford. "What happened to him? He's limping pretty bad." Galford froze suddenly and looked at Zelda. Zelda looked at Galford and used all her willpower not to burst out laughing. Galford looked at Ines and said, "It's a long story, you don't want to know. Just get in the damn car." As the quartet got in the car, and Ines used his magic to disguise himself, as Gina he muttered, "What crawled up your ass, and died. Sheesh." Zelda couldn't take it anymore, her laughter doubled her over, as they flew off in the Gina-mobile. Why would they need to fly somewhere? They must have found something in their area that pointed to some kind of treasure, but the only place that you'd need to fly is the northeast. That's it. I wish there was a way to stop Pee-wee and his goons, but they've locked me out. Penny smirked as she flew off with Charlotte's help, but Gina didn't care about that, she was trying to think of a way to turn this around. Naruto grinned and nudged Gina with his hip. "Hey, how badly do you want to stop them? Cause I can do it, but you have to promise not to get annoyed." Gina gave Naruto a cockeyed expression and meant softly, "Alright, but you better tell me what you're about to do, and it better not involve wrecking the car." Naruto laughed and shook his head as he made a strange hand sign. No, nothing like that. First off, you installed that external system we talked about that can accept voice commands, right?" At Gina's confused nod, Naruto took a deep breath and continued on. "Good, I just wanted to make sure you wouldn't get angry at me that I have full access to all your security protocols, including the car. Also, I've been hiding a disguised clone there for the last week, just in case." Gina looked at Naruto in shock, and the shinobi continued. "After all, it's the perfect place to put a shadow clone that no one would ever expect. That sign I just made. It let him know what to do, the car should be stopping right about now." Gina was thinking of what she had just been told, and the fact that she knew there were always several clones in the house at any given time helping out. It made sense to have a way to pass info that didn't involve popping weight. If he can use a hand sign to tell his clones what to do, oh, you have gotta be kidding me. That's how you cheated that first night we played Street Fighter. Naruto gave a fox-like grin, and the clone popped, warning the original that his secret was blown. Naruto. As Gina tried to get her breathing back under control, she had to ask herself, what could Naruto possibly have disguised as his clone, as if it's in the car? With Cheetah and the real Naruto, they were making their way back to where they had left Gina. Naruto suddenly stopped and paled a little. "Uh-oh, I'm in trouble." Turning to the northeast, he looked at Cheetah and said, "Change of plans, everyone is making a run for the northeast. I'll go and cause some mayhem, you get Gina and meet me there." Before Cheetah could even agree to the new plan, Naruto took off in a flash down the corridor. Cheetah looked at the rapidly fading back of her friend and scratched her head in confusion at his sudden change in attitude. What the heck is his problem? Meanwhile, back with the car. Erwin rubbed his hands together greedily. Everything was going exactly as he planned, and there was nothing. The loud bang interrupted Erwin's inner thoughts, and he looked around wildly for the cause of it. What was that? A sudden weight landed on top of the car, causing the vehicle to wobble, while everyone looked out the windows, wondering what kind of trouble they were in now. Naruto clone number 2 was, in a word, pissed. First, he had been stuck as a spare tire for the last week since he got the short straw when they drew lots for the duty. Second, he was sleeping when the order came in to stop the car thieves. And finally, he had to fight his way out from under some huge-ass piece of equipment that Gina had loaded in the car. So, needless to say, he was not exactly in a mood to deal with car thieves. Placing a hand on the roof, he said, "Authorization Uzumaki Alpha, Sierra, Kilo, Charlie, Kilo, Romeo. Engage hover mode, and lock out all other secure users until secondary command code for user Uzumaki is provided. Acknowledge the last order." A quick double honk of the car's horn, and the Gina-mobile immediately began to slow. "That'll teach them to steal our stuff. Little bastards, they're lucky the original promised I wouldn't destroy the car." Erwin became very nervous when their forward speed slowed drastically until finally it stopped completely, just shy of their target. Looking over to his left, Talon grabbed Ines and pointed at the controls. "Ines, do something." Ines tried everything he could think of to get the car moving, but nothing was working. Sorry Lord Talon, it appears we have been locked out. What the hell is that thing? Everyone looked out the front windshield at the Naruto clone currently crouching on top of it. Said clone was angrily glaring at everyone, and, as he did so his eyes shifted from his normal sky blue to a deep red, the marks on his cheeks darkened, and his fangs lengthened slightly, causing everyone in the cockpit to react accordingly. Zelda and Galford screamed bloody murder. Ines opened his spell book for a teleportation spell, and Erwin, well, Naruto would want to clean up the car, before he gave it back to Gina. Moments later Ines's teleportation spell kicked in, and the car was empty once more. Naruto arrived at the edge of a cliff, and saw the hovering car several hundred feet ahead of him, the sight causing the blonde to grin widely, as he cupped his hands in front of his mouth. Nice job number 2. Suck my dick, asshole. Naruto grinned at his clone's pissed off response, giving it the mental command to pop, as he looked around, staking in what was happening around him. He saw 2 helicopters, and some kind of fighter craft slowly making their way to a building he could barely make out, so he looked for a good way to get to the other side. Deciding to do it the shinobi way, Naruto ran to the wall, and used his chakra to help him scale the sheer rock until he reached the ceiling, and began running full tilt towards the car. As he neared the stalled vehicle he saw Pee-wee and his goons reappear on the far ledge, the group running as far away as they could from the car, their actions causing the shinobi to grin widely. Leaping from the ceiling, Naruto rocketed towards the hovering car, and landed on the roof. Authorization Delta, Omega, Delta, Gina, Echo, re-engage drive, and weapon systems for all main users. Naruto grinned, as the car honked twice once more, the blonde sliding into the driver's seat, and began activating the weapon systems in the car. Gonna have to thank Brianna for all those late-night lessons on using the car's features, it'll finally come in handy. A few sniffs, and Naruto's nose wrinkled. Aw damn it, now I have to wash the seats before we leave. Okay, time to make him pay. Halfway around the world, Brianna had a sudden warm fuzzy feeling in her chest. Looking towards the north she grinned, as she thought of Naruto, saddened that she couldn't go with them, but an experiment that she had been running was in its most critical stages, so she couldn't leave it alone. Brianna was snapped out of her thoughts when the phone rang, and she scrambled to grab the handset. Once she heard what the caller wanted she wished that she hadn't been able to make it in time. Naruto aimed for Pee-wee and his crew, then activated the external speaker systems for the car. Hull car thieves, I am here to make your life a living hell, surrender, and die. Ines raised his hands, and shouted. Excuse me, sir, don't you mean surrender or die? Naruto grinned maliciously, as he activated the missile system, and just before he pushed the firing stud, his maniacal laughter echoing through the gallery. I meant what I said. Gina and Brittany arrived just as the Gina mobile launched its missiles. They threw their arms in front of their eyes to protect themselves from debris and the glare. When the explosions were over they looked forward, and nearly doubled over laughing. Naruto had apparently used the non-lethal missile system, consisting of a series of flashbangs and entrapment gels. Pee-wee and his crew were futile, struggling to move, but they weren't going anywhere for a while. Cheetah even had a hard time getting out of the stuff, and she was stronger than everyone in Pee-wee's group. That crazy knucklehead, I could kiss him right now. A sidelong glance and a smirk were the only answer that Brittany provided to Gina's comment. Gina looked over and sighed. Okay, fine, I want to kiss him all the time, happy now. Brittany giggled and grabbed her sister, seeing a way that she could get across the chasm in front of them. Moments later the 2 women landed and waved at the floating car. Naruto. Set it down, and we'll go see what's so important. Gina watched as Naruto made a slightly wobbly descent, and made a mental note to take him on lessons to fly the car, with plenty of time put aside to get to know each other better. The car finally touched down, and Naruto jumped out, grabbing Gina and twirling her around as he laughed. Gina couldn't help herself and began giggling loudly. Brittany stood to the side as she smiled sadly. Those 3 had better work this out, or they will be held to pay. Once they were all under control, Gina went over and found a large crate that was half hanging out of the trunk. With a grin she pushed a key on her wrist comp, and the container suddenly transformed into a fully armed Hurtbot. Alpha 4, ready for action. The Hurtbot turned to its creator, its weapon systems making several whirs or clicking sounds, as its voice boomed out, all systems nominal, ready for combat. Warning, subspace distortions detected. Behind the group the Montara twins finally showed up, their hands clasped, as their psychic powers began to flare around them. All of you will leave this place thus or you will burn. A massive jet of pyrokinetic flame raced towards the digger crew, but the Hurtbot stood in front of it. Its shields were more than enough to handle the impact. Naruto jumped over the mech and raced forward, throwing the Montara sister to the wall, knocking her cold, and grabbed the brother's clothing, knocking him out with a well-placed punch. Now that that's taken care of, Gina, way's clear, let's go. Chiefs, wanna run interference with the Hurtbot out here, and keep Mr. I'm a ninja businessman off our backs. Gina circled on her new love interest, and jabbed a finger in his chest. Hey, speaking of cheats, I know how you. Naruto pointed behind Gina, and yelled, look, it's Charlotte, she's carrying Penny into the building. Gina growled as she began running towards the entrance. This conversation is shelved for now, but you are so much trouble. Naruto grinned as he ran forward, scooped Gina up in his arms, and put on a burst of speed, entering the chamber, just as Penny managed to gain access to a multitude of what looked like floating diamonds. Naruto slowed as he looked up with wide eyes, and saw lots and lots of teeth. Said teeth said a single word that got everyone's attention. Leave. Gina, Penny, and Charlotte all looked at the floating sets of teeth and eyes with wide-eyed expressions of fear, not saying a single word. Naruto on the other hand had sparkles in his eyes, and said, "That is so cool." Break. Erwin Talon was not having a good day. First, they had to share the dig site with all these other peasants. Next, his plan to keep the diggers busy had failed when his minions were beaten. The car fiasco would haunt his dreams for weeks, and finally the entrapment gel was still sticking to him in certain uncomfortable places. After they had finally freed themselves thanks to a handy spell from Ionis, said Mage, and his faithful ninja were keeping Brittany diggers, and the herbot she had helping her busy while Talon and Zelda ran for the building everyone had been trying to get into. Just as they were about to enter, the pair saw Gina in the arms of her newest stooge barreling out, screaming, "Run you fools, run." As Erwin watched the pair race away, he saw Penny and her harpy fly overhead, a 4-foot-long diamond in their grasp. "That's bigger than I am. Inside, now." As Erwin and Zelda turned back to the doorway, they were greeted by a set of teeth, very large teeth. "Thieves, you have awakened my fury." Erwin, for the second time today, now had to change his pants. Moments later a bright green light bathed the doorway, and Erwin knew no more. Break. Naruto looked back at the tall dragon-like thing, and grinned, as he ran faster. Brittany saw him, and caught up to him, screaming at her sister in his arms. "What the hell is that? What did you do, Gina?" Gina held onto her hat, and yelled back, "Nothing." "Blame Penny, we need to get out of here, now." Before they could move again, Gina's herbot blasted off towards the new enemy, fulfilling its programming to protect its creator. A moment later a blast of green energy engulfed it, and after it cleared, there was nothing, not even wreckage of the mech remained. Naruto and Cheetah looked at each other, and took off immediately, knowing that it was a good time to run. Naruto and Cheetah poured on the speed, and saw the exit in front of them, but they were going to have to jump to make it. Just as Naruto and Cheetah leapt forward, the Montaras decided to throw a monkey wrench into that plan, using their psychic powers to steal Naruto's momentum, and save themselves. Cheetah landed on the ledge without a problem, but Naruto was falling towards the ground, the shinobi glaring at the smirking twins, as they sailed past him. "If it was just me, that's not a big deal, but Jean is here too. When I get my hands on those two." The thought was cut off, as his back hit the ground, and the pair rolled a short way before Naruto's back hit a stalagmite. Grunting through the pain, Naruto looked down at his passenger, and was greeted by a pair of worried eyes. Looking towards the ledge, Naruto saw Cheetah's head popped up, and heard her startled yell. "What the hell are you doing down there? Get the hell out of there, right now." Naruto rose to his feet, and looked behind him, seeing several of the green orbs that had chased after the others closing in on the both of them. "Well, looks like it's now or never. I was hoping to keep this one a secret, but things never go the way you expect them to. Cheetah, get your ass out of here, I got another way out. I'll meet you at the entrance." Cheetah gave him a worried look for a moment, then remembered what the blonde shinobi had done the first time they all met him. Cheetah smirked and said, "You better, I'm not explaining to Bri what happened to you if you don't. Not to mention you still owe me." Naruto grinned, as the word Cheetah turned around, and ran through the exit. Looking down at Gina again he grinned, and cocked his head to the side. "Hang on tight, this may feel a little weird." A moment later they were both gone, the only sign of anything having been in the area was a flash of yellow light. Gina nearly screamed, as the pair were plunged into darkness, the surprised genius falling a few feet to the hard stone ground. Reaching for her pockets, Gina pulled a flashlight, as she looked for Naruto. Moments later she saw him laying a few feet away from her, face down on the ground, and not moving. Gina scrambled towards him, and pulled him into her arms. The archaeologist started to cry, as she placed Naruto's head in her lap. "Naruto. Come on, don't you dare do this to me." I haven't even." The weak groan caught Gina's attention, and she looked into the tired eyes of the knucklehead she was falling for. "Hey, Sock, I'm just really tired. Haven't quite figured out the right seal formula for that one yet, so it's really draining. But, we're safe for now." Gina looked around her, and saw that they were in an enclosed space with a long passageway that snaked out behind her. "Where are we?" Naruto groaned, as he tried to get up, but a firm push from Gina followed by a glare, stopped him from moving. Naruto sighed, as he got comfortable. I mean, who wouldn't in this situation? Side passage, about a mile from the entrance. I tagged it earlier before we headed north. We should be safe to stay here for a while till I get a bit of my chakra back. Tagged. Naruto weakly pointed to the left of the pair. Gina shone her light in the direction, and saw a gleaming tri-pronged kunai that had been stabbed into the ground. Its hilt had a small scroll wrapped around it. The only word she could make out was flash. The Hiraishin no Jutsu, or Flying Thunder God technique. It was my dad's, but he never got a chance to teach it to me, so I've been putting it together through trial and error over the last 18 years after I found Julia. Dad used to literally flash around the battlefield and decimate his enemies. Me. Ha, one use, and this is what happens, for now at least. Gina sighed, as she absently started to run her fingers gently through Naruto's hair, planning on making the most of the fact he was at her mercy and unable to move. Naruto, there's something I need to talk with you about. Ever since you arrived when you saved me from that foul, a hand on her cheek stopped Gina in shock. Looking down at Naruto, a tired smile dominated his face, as he said, hey, Sok, it's all part of what I do. The two things I'm best at are, first, kicking ass. And a very close second is rescuing the beautiful damsel in distress. Gina felt a few tears appear in her eyes, and she decided that it was the best time to make her move. I may never get another chance, it's time to show him what he means to me. Leaning forward, Gina closed her eyes, as she gently kissed Naruto. It was a little awkward since he was in her lap, but it was worth it to her. As she felt Naruto respond to the kiss, Gina's heart soared, then just as quickly it crashed to the ground when Naruto tried to push her away. Wait, can't do this, can't choose one of you over the other. For a moment Gina was hurt, unbelievably so, when the words Naruto had just spoken finally registered. With a soft smile she kissed the weakened man's forehead, and murmured soothingly, Sok, we'll talk about it later, okay? Don't worry, I'm not mad, this just shows I chose right this time. Pulling Naruto into her lap, Gina held onto him like he was the giant teddy she kept in her room, the pair cuddling against each other, as they managed to fall asleep. Gina woke to the heavenly feeling of being in Naruto's arms again. Snuggling in closer, Gina kept her eyes closed until she heard a soft chuckle. Looking up she saw Naruto's smiling face beaming down at her. Gina reached a hand up, and gently stroked the whiskers on Naruto's cheek, giggling at the rumbling sound in his chest at her action. Hey sleepyhead, we're almost there. I'm taking it slow for once, we've been walking for a little under half hour or so. Gina nodded, and settled back against her rescuer's chest, feeling more safe than she ever had, even when she was with her dad. So this is what Mom was trying to explain to me, huh? Guess she was right, you don't know what it feels like till it happens. As the pair finally reached the exit, the bright light momentarily blinded them. Seconds later they heard, Gina, Naruto, and were nearly tackled by an enthusiastic ball of energy, Aka Brittany. Naruto grinned, as he lowered Gina back to the ground, but the genius refused to let go of him, and buried her face in his chest. No, don't wanna, pick me up. Now. Brittany giggled while Naruto sighed, deciding to give in to the request. So needy. And clingy. Ah, who am I kidding, I'm enjoying it too. As Naruto's eyes finally adjusted he saw that everyone else was already here, some appearing more confused than others. Heck, even the Genimobile was there, as well. So what exactly happened? Penny sauntered over, gave the recently returned pair a smirk, and said, well stud, it looks like those lights that were chasing up were only a way to make us leave, everyone they hit was teleported back here. And, as you can see, the entrance is sealed off now with a barrier, no one is getting back in there again. Looking behind him, Naruto saw the barrier that Penny had been referring to, and hung his head tiredly, realizing he didn't need to pull out Flying Thunder God after all. A hand on his cheek turned his gaze back on Gina, and she grinned at him. Hey, don't worry, I'll keep it a secret on how we got out, but you owe me now. Naruto laughed, and leaned into the hand on his cheek. Moments later I heard a painful sounding smack. Turning back around, Naruto saw Penny rubbing the back of her head, Cheetah poking Penny in the shoulder, and the recently arrived Seance tried to hold his laughter in. Oi, Penny, no ogling his ass, he's spoken for already. Gina's arms tightened around Naruto's neck possessively, and she glared at her rival. Naruto chuckled at the situation, wondering if this is what Sasuke had to go through with all the girls that chased him. Okay, I think it's time we headed home. What did Cheetah sell her chance to fight Galford for? While Naruto was observing the girls, he had sent several clones around the US to try and start a shipping business, or, as the police like to call it, a smuggling ring. How else would he get the material that he needed to do his job? Several of the items he needed to get were highly expensive, illegal or both. As he managed to get his venture off the ground with the help of the knowledge he had learned from Jiraiya during his training journey, Naruto ran into a businessman that couldn't provide him the material he wanted, even though the order was already supposed to have been fulfilled and shipped. He replaced it with a product he claimed was of equal value, and shipped it to the central location of Naruto's operation. When the crates arrived, one of his clones opened a crate and cocked his head to the side in confusion. What the hell is the boss going to do with 10 shipping crates full of ice and fresh tuna? Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic. Link is in the description. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.